Junk DNA, the mystery that makes us human. Imagine holding a book, a long, winding, ancient book with over 3 billion letters. You open it, expecting to find page after page of dense, essential instructions. How your body works, how you breathe, how your heart beats, how you remember. But then you discover something strange. Only about 2% of the letters seem to carry clear meaning. The rest? Repetitive phrases, blank pages, ancient symbols, scribbles no one. And yet this book, your DNA, built you. This is the mystery of junk DNA. The term itself feels dismissive, junk, as if nature made a mistake, as if nearly all of what makes you you is meaningless genetic noise. But what if the opposite is true? What if the 98% we don't understand is more than just filler? What if the mystery is the message? Let's start at the beginning. DNA is the blueprint of life. Inside every cell in your body, there's a strand of DNA tightly coiled and folded, carrying the instructions for how to build and operate a human being. And for a long time, scientists believed they had cracked the code. Genes, those short, specific stretches of DNA, were the key. They coded for proteins, the building blocks of life. Hair color, blood type, height, disease, each trait seemed to trace back to a gene. But then came a startling realization. Only about 1.5% of human DNA actually codes for proteins. Just a sliver, a whisper. So what about the rest? The other 98.5%. For years, it was called junk. Useless leftovers from evolutionary history. Ancient viruses, mutations, broken genes, like forgotten footnotes in the margins of our genetic manuscript. But the deeper we looked, the less this explanation made sense. Why would evolution keep so much useless material? Why carry the weight of so much genetic baggage, generation after generation? Some researchers began to ask a radical question. What if it's not junk at all? In 2003, the Human Genome Project completed the first full sequence of human DNA. What it revealed was more mystery than clarity. Repetitive sequences, regulatory regions, introns, transposons. Pieces that didn't code for anything but seemed stubbornly conserved across species. In some places, the non-coding DNA was even more conserved than the coding regions. That's a clue. Evolution tends to erase what it doesn't need, so why hasn't it erased this? Let's consider what we do know. Some of this non-coding DNA regulates genes. It acts like a dimmer switch, turning genes on or off, up or down, depending on the time and place. Without these regulators, the same gene might behave completely differently in different cells. A gene that builds a liver cell might be harmful in a brain cell. So regulation is everything. And junk DNA? It might be the control panel. Other parts seem to serve as scaffolding, helping to structure chromosomes, fold DNA properly, or maintain genetic stability. Still others may be transcribed into RNA, not to build proteins but to do jobs of their own. Some of these RNAs help silence genes, some edit other RNAs, and some may have roles we haven't even imagined yet. But here's where the mystery deepens. Even with all we've discovered, vast stretches of non-coding DNA remain unexplained. Thousands of sequences sit in silence, never turned into RNA or protein, never seemingly used. They're like forgotten songs in a language no one speaks anymore. But perhaps it's not that they're useless. Maybe we just don't yet know how to read them. And this brings us to the paradox at the heart of junk DNA. How can something so apparently meaningless be so persistent, so universal, and so intricately woven into the fabric of our existence? Why would nature carry this genetic silence for millions of years? What if the silence is part of the signal? Some scientists believe junk DNA may act like a library of potential, evolution's sandbox. These sequences may not serve a function now, but they may serve one later. Over time, mutations can convert junk into function. A meaningless stretch of DNA may suddenly start regulating a gene, producing a new RNA, or becoming a new protein altogether. Junk DNA might be evolution's raw material, an archive of what could be. Others propose an even more daring idea, that our understanding of genetics is still in its infancy, that the language of life isn't just coded in genes, but in patterns, structures, and rhythms we haven't yet begun to decipher. Maybe DNA isn't just a set of instructions, maybe it's a symphony, and perhaps junk DNA is the harmony. There's a term in physics, dark matter. It refers to the invisible mass that seems to hold galaxies together. We can't see it, but without it the cosmos wouldn't work. Junk DNA might be our biological dark matter, not directly observable, not well understood, but essential in ways we haven't yet grasped. We often assume that understanding must come first, that function follows discovery, but nature rarely waits for us to catch up. The heart beat long before we knew what it was for. The stars burned long before we knew how to look at them. Maybe junk DNA has been working in the background all along, silent, patient, and vital. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with humility. It leaves us with awe. It reminds us that science isn't about having all the answers. It's about living with the questions, about standing before the unknown and choosing to listen anyway. Junk DNA isn't a failure of nature, it's a failure of imagination. It's a signpost that we've only just begun to read the story written inside us. And maybe the story is much stranger, deeper, and more beautiful than we ever expected. Because sometimes the most powerful truths are hidden in the parts we once called meaningless. And sometimes the junk turns out to be the treasure. Quantum entanglement. Imagine two particles, born together in a moment of quantum creation. You separate them, by inches, by miles, by galaxies. And yet something strange remains. Change the state of one particle, and the other responds instantly. Not through space, not through time. Instantly. As if distance itself didn't matter, as if the universe forgot to keep them apart. This is quantum entanglement. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. To him it seemed impossible. How could two particles separated by light years communicate faster than the speed of light? It violated everything classical physics believed to be true. But again and again experiments confirmed it. Entanglement was real, and it didn't just challenge our understanding of physics, it shattered it. In the classical world, everything is local. If you touch one thing, it affects its neighbors. Information travels through space and time in orderly ways. But the quantum world plays by different rules. In this world, particles don't just exist in one state. They exist in many, spinning up and down at the same time, like coins suspended mid-flip. When two particles become entangled, their fates intertwine. No matter how far they drift, their outcomes remain linked. Measure one particle, and the other's state becomes instantly determined, even if they're on opposite sides of the universe. Not because they send a message, not because one travels to the other, but because, in some deep, fundamental sense, there's still one system. This isn't magic, it's mathematics, it's nature, and it works. Entanglement has been tested in laboratories with photons, electrons, even small molecules. Over and over, the results defy classical expectations. Bell's theorem, a cornerstone of quantum theory, showed that no local theory can explain what we see. Entangled particles behave as if space doesn't exist between them. But how? Some physicists believe entanglement suggests a deeper structure to reality, that something beneath space and time. Others see it as evidence that information is more fundamental than matter itself. There are even theories that entanglement might be the fabric from which space and time emerge, a cosmic stitching that binds the universe together. The implications are staggering. Entanglement lies at the heart of quantum computing, a technology that could revolutionize how we solve problems. It could allow us to process information in ways classical computers never could, using the strange, parallel realities of quantum bits. Entanglement also opens the door to quantum encryption, creating communications so secure that even eavesdropping becomes impossible. But beyond the technology, beyond the science, there's something even more profound. Entanglement reminds us that the universe is not made of isolated parts. It's made of relationships, connections, threads of influence that stretch beyond distance, beyond time, beyond understanding. We like to think of ourselves as separate, as distinct. But what if everything is entangled? What if every particle in your body still hums with the memory of the stars that forged it? What if, in some quiet quantum way, we are never truly alone? Quantum entanglement isn't just a scientific puzzle. It's a glimpse into a deeper truth, that the universe is more unified, more mysterious, and more interconnected than we ever imagined. And maybe that's the most astonishing thing of all, because in the end, the particles may be small, the distances may be vast, but the connection is unbreakable. Dark matter and dark energy. Imagine standing under a sky scattered with stars. You look up and see galaxies spinning in silence, clusters of light holding themselves together across billions of light years. But what if everything you see, every star, every planet, every atom, was just the tip of the iceberg? What if all that we know, all that we've ever touched, smelled, built, or dreamed of, was just 5% of the story? This is the mystery of dark matter and dark energy. Together, they make up over 95% of the universe, and yet, we don't know what they are. Let's begin with dark matter. In the 1930s, astronomer Fritz Zwicky looked at galaxies in a distant cluster and noticed something strange. The galaxies were moving too fast. Based on their visible mass, gravity shouldn't have been able to hold them together. By all logic, they should have been flung apart like sparks from a spinning wheel, but they stayed bound. Something was missing, something invisible, something massive. That something became known as dark matter, not because it's dark like shadow, but because it doesn't emit or reflect light. We can't see it. We can't touch it. But we can observe its fingerprints. We see dark matter in the way galaxies rotate. The outer edges move too fast to be held by visible matter alone. We see it in gravitational lensing, where light bends around invisible mass. We see it in the cosmic web, the structure of the universe itself, scaffolded not by stars but by something unseen. It's like trying to understand a windstorm by watching the trees sway. We can't see the wind, but we know it's there. Dark matter is the silent architect of the cosmos. Without it, galaxies would fall apart. Stars would drift like dust. The universe as we know it simply wouldn't exist. But what is it? We don't know. It's not made of atoms, it doesn't interact with light, it passes through us, through planets, through everything. Physicists have proposed exotic particles, WIMPs, axions, sterile neutrinos, but none have been found. We've built detectors deep underground, waiting for a whisper of dark matter to show itself. So far, we've heard nothing. It's humbling, because the matter we understand, the matter that makes us, is just a small island in a vast invisible sea. But the mystery deepens. If dark matter holds things together, dark energy pushes them apart. In the late 1996, two teams of astronomers were studying supernovae, exploding stars used as cosmic mile markers. They expected to find that the expansion of the universe was slowing down, pulled back by gravity. Instead, they found the opposite. The universe is speeding up. Something is driving galaxies away from each other faster and faster. Not a force we can see or measure directly, but an energy woven into the fabric of space itself. We call it dark energy, and it makes up nearly 70% of the universe. Unlike dark matter, which clumps around galaxies and gives them shape, dark energy is smooth, uniform, and everywhere. It doesn't pull, it pushes. Quietly, relentlessly, it accelerates the universe outward, like a balloon inflating without end. But again, we don't know what it is. It might be a property of space itself, or a new kind of field, or something even more abstract, an artifact of unknown physics waiting to be discovered. Whatever it is, it's dictating the fate of the cosmos. Billions of years from now, distant galaxies may vanish beyond our reach, carried away by the accelerating tide of dark energy, leaving our sky empty and alone. Dark matter holds the cosmos together. Dark energy tears it apart, and we're caught in the middle, living our entire lives inside the 5% we can see. But maybe that's the lesson. The universe is vast, mysterious, and mostly invisible, yet we build our understanding from shadows, gravity, and silence. We map what we can't see, name what we can't touch, and imagine what we don't yet know. It's easy to think of dark matter and dark energy as gaps in our knowledge, as problems to be solved, but maybe they're also invitations. Invitations to wonder, to question, to stay curious. They remind us that we are not the center of the story. We are a flicker of light inside a dark and beautiful mystery. And maybe that's enough, because even in the dark we look up, even in the unknown we search, and sometimes the universe whispers back. Placebo effect. Imagine taking a pill. It's small, white, and unmarked. The doctor tells you it will help with your pain, your anxiety, your insomnia. You believe it. You swallow it. And then something happens. The pain fades, your heartbeat slows, sleep comes more easily. But here's the twist. The pill had no active ingredient. It was a sugar pill, a placebo. And yet, it worked. This is the placebo effect. It's one of the strangest and most powerful mysteries in medicine. The idea that belief alone, without chemicals, without surgery, without intervention, can heal the body. It sounds impossible, like wishful thinking, but study after study shows it's real. The mind can influence the body in ways we're only beginning to understand. The placebo effect begins with expectation. When you believe something will help you, your brain prepares for that outcome. It releases endorphins. It adjusts your perception. It alters how your nervous system responds to pain, discomfort, or stress. In some cases, it even changes your immune function, your digestion, your sleep. The body doesn't know the pill is fake. It only knows what the mind believes. But the effect goes deeper. Placebos have been shown to improve symptoms across a wide range of conditions: chronic pain, depression, anxiety, irritable bowel syndrome, fatigue, and even Parkinson's disease. And what's more surprising is that these effects aren't just imagined. Brain scans show real changes in neural activity. Blood tests show real changes in hormones. The experience is subjective, yes, but the biology is objective. In some studies, people experienced relief even when they were told they were taking a placebo. This is called an open-label placebo. And it works. Just the act of taking a pill, engaging in a healing ritual, and being treated by someone you trust seems to flip a switch in the brain. It's as if the body says, "We're doing something about this," and begins to cooperate, even when the treatment is biologically inert. This raises profound questions about the nature of healing. Where does it begin? How much of medicine is chemistry and how much is context, ritual, and belief? If the mind can generate real physical responses based on expectation alone, what else is it capable of? Some scientists describe the placebo effect as tapping into an internal pharmacy, a deeply rooted biological system that can release painkillers, anti-anxiety chemicals, anti-enslaver agents, and more. This system doesn't need a prescription, it needs a signal, and sometimes that signal is simply belief. But there's a paradox here. The placebo effect is powerful but unpredictable. It doesn't work for everyone. It's difficult to control, hard to measure, and even harder to replicate. And for that reason, it's often dismissed as a nuisance in clinical trials. A confounding factor that muddies the search for real treatments. But what if the placebo effect is a real treatment? Not instead of medicine, but alongside it. Doctors have long understood that how a treatment is delivered matters. A warm voice, a confident explanation, a caring presence. These aren't just nice, they can make a difference. The placebo effect reveals something essential. We don't heal in isolation. We heal in relationships, in moments of trust, attention, and meaning. And perhaps that's the most important lesson of all. Healing isn't just about what we take. It's about what we believe. It's about how we're treated, how we're heard, how we feel when someone says, "You're going to be okay." The placebo effect isn't just about sugar pills. It's about the mind's incredible, underestimated power to influence the body. It's about the way hope, or real, grounded hope, can change chemistry. Because in the end, healing isn't just a biological process, it's a human one. And sometimes, belief is the first medicine. Tardigrades, survival. They're smaller than a grain of sand. You couldn't see one without a microscope. And yet, these tiny, slow-moving creatures might be the toughest life forms on Earth, or anywhere else. Meet the tardigrade, Dot, also known as the water bear. It doesn't look like much. 8 stubby legs, a pudgy body, and a wrinkled face that seems strangely peaceful. But beneath that gentle appearance is something extraordinary. Tardigrades can survive almost anything. Boil them, freeze them, expose them to radiation, starve them, dehydrate them, or launch them into the vacuum of space. They come back. Not always, not perfectly, but enough to defy our understanding of biology. Enough to make us question what alive even means. In 2007, tardigrades were sent into low Earth orbit. They were exposed to space.no air, extreme radiation, cosmic rays, and when they were brought back to Earth, some of them were still alive. Not just intact, alive, breathing, moving, even reproducing. In the hostile silence of space, where metal corrodes and human bodies wither, these microscopic creatures endured. How? Tardigrades have a secret. When faced with extreme stress, they enter a state called cryptobiosis. They dry out almost completely, curling into a tight ball called a tun. In this state, their metabolism slows to near nillo. They stop eating, growing, reproducing. They become something else, something halfway between life and stasis. They can stay in this suspended animation for years, maybe decades. Then, with a drop of water, they rehydrate, come back to life, and continue on as if nothing happened. It's more than survival, it's resurrection. And this ability goes far beyond dehydration. Tardigrades can endure temperatures as low as -272 degrees Celsius, just a fraction above absolute zero. They can withstand heat over 150 degrees Celsius, pressures stronger than those in the deep ocean, and radiation doses that would obliterate most known life. They even produce special proteins that protect their DNA from damage, wrapping their genetic code in a molecular shield. It's no exaggeration to say they've rewritten what we thought biology could do. But perhaps the most incredible thing about tardigrades isn't just their toughness. It's what they represent. They're a reminder that life is not fragile. Life adapts. Life endures. These creatures have survived all 5 mass extinctions on Earth. They've been around for over 500 million years. They were here before the dinosaurs, before trees, before oxygen was abundant in the atmosphere, and they're still here now, crawling through moss, soil, and ocean sediment. In a universe filled with uncertainty, tardigrades are proof that life finds a way. Some scientists believe that if life exists elsewhere, on Mars, on frozen moons, in distant solar systems, it might look more like a tardigrade than like us. Simple, resilient, unbreakable. Maybe life doesn't need comfort. Maybe it needs challenge, pressure, radiation, cold. Maybe life's true nature is not in how it thrives, but in how it refuses to die. We often imagine survival as something fierce, dramatic, or heroic. But the tardigrade survives by waiting, by shrinking, by slowing down. It teaches us that resilience doesn't always mean pushing forward. Sometimes it means holding still until the storm passes. So the next time you think of strength, don't think of towering giants or sharp claws. Think of something tiny, curled into a microscopic ball, floating through space with no air, no food, no sound, waiting for a drop of water and a second chance. Because in that quiet perseverance, the tardigrade carries a message. Life is tougher than we think, and it doesn't give up easily. Wave-particle duality. Imagine a single electron. Just one tiny particle, smaller than an atom, drifting through space. You fire it at a screen with 2 narrow slits cut into it. On the other side of the slits is a blank wall to record the impact. You'd expect the electron to go through one slit or the other, like a bullet through a doorway, and hit the wall behind it. But that's not what happens. Instead, something impossible happens. Over time, as you repeat the experiment, a pattern begins to form on the wall. Not 2 bands, like you'd expect from particles, but a complex set of stripes, an interference pattern, the kind you get when waves overlap. Somehow this tiny electron is behaving not like a particle, but like a wave that splits, passes through both slits at once, interferes with itself, and then collapses into a single dot when it hits the wall. This is wave-particle duality. It's one of the most shocking, beautiful, and unsettling truths in quantum physics, that particles, things we think of as solid, discrete, and countable, are also waves. Not metaphorically, literally. Every electron, every photon of light, every atom has this dual nature. Under the right conditions, matter ripples like water. But the strangest part is this: if you place a detector at the slits to observe which slit the electron actually goes through, the interference pattern disappears. The electron stops behaving like a wave and acts like a particle again. Just by observing it, you change what it is. It's as if the electron knows it's being watched and adjusts its behavior accordingly. This isn't just a trick of the lab. It's not an illusion or a glitch in the equipment. It's been repeated, verified, tested 1,000 ways. And it doesn't just apply to electrons. It applies to atoms, to molecules, even to large structures in the right conditions. The boundary between wave and particle isn't fixed. It depends on how we look. What does this mean? It means the world at its deepest level isn't made of things. It's made of probabilities, possibilities, clouds of potential that only become real when we interact with them. The universe isn't a fixed, solid machine. It's a shifting tapestry of maybes, shaped by observation and entangled with awareness. Einstein hated this. He believed physics should be predictable, deterministic. He once said, "God does not play dice with the universe." But quantum mechanics disagreed. And so far, it's been right. Wave-particle duality tells us that light isn't just a wave, and it's not just a particle, it's both. Electrons aren't just matter, they're also energy. The deeper we look into the nature of reality, the more it slips through our fingers. But maybe that's not a flaw, maybe it's the design. The double-slit experiment doesn't just challenge physics. It challenges our assumptions about certainty, about perspective, about what it means to know something. It shows us that reality is more mysterious than we imagined, that at the heart of everything is a strange, shimmering duality. And maybe we're not so different. We too are particles, solid, real, tangible, and we too are waves, fluid, changing, defined not just by where we are, but by how we're seen. So the next time you think of matter as dull or predictable, remember this. At the smallest level, even the universe dances between being and becoming, between the definite and the possible, between the seen and the imagined. And every electron is a reminder that the world is stranger, softer, and more wondrous than it seems. Black hole singularities. Imagine a star, massive, ancient, and burning bright. For millions of years it has held itself together in a delicate balance. Gravity pulling inward, nuclear fusion pushing outward. But one day the balance tips. The fuel runs out, the star collapses, and something terrifying is born. A black hole. Not just a dense object, not just an invisible pit in space, but a region where gravity becomes so strong not even light can escape, a one-way door in the fabric of the universe. Cross the boundary, the event horizon, and nothing comes back. Not light, not matter, not even time as we know it. And at the center of this cosmic trap, a singularity, a point of infinite density. Zero volume, no width, no height, no depth, just everything crushed into nothing. According to general relativity, this is where the laws of physics, laws that have guided us through galaxies and equations, simply stop working. The math breaks down. Time and space lose their meaning. Cause and effect begin to unravel. We don't know what exists there. Is it truly infinite? Is it a flaw in the theory? Or is it a doorway into a deeper layer of reality we don't yet understand? Some physicists believe the singularity isn't real, but a sign that our understanding is incomplete, a hint that we need a theory of quantum gravity, a way to unify Einstein's smooth space-time with the jittery unpredictability of quantum mechanics. Because right now, those two great theories of physics don't agree. Relativity describes gravity as the bending of space and time. Quantum mechanics describes particles as probabilities and fields. But at the singularity, both systems collapse under their own weight. It's like asking what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. The answer isn't just unknown. It's unknowable with the tools we have. And yet, singularities aren't rare. They aren't some distant anomaly. Every black hole hides one, possibly even the one at the center of our galaxy. Billions of them could be scattered throughout the universe, hiding behind veils of darkness, close cores of dead stars, each with a secret at its heart. They're not just objects. They're paradoxes, places where information may disappear, where the known laws of nature twist into knots, where time may end or begin again. Some theories suggest singularities could lead to other universes, that a black hole here might open into a big bang somewhere else, that what we call the end might actually be a beginning. Others believe the singularity is shielded by a firewall or zone of unimaginable energy, or that information isn't lost, just scrambled beyond recognition. But no one knows for sure, because we can't see the singularity. We can't observe it. We can't test it. We can only infer its existence from the equations that scream toward infinity. It's like a forbidden word in the language of the universe, a silent punctuation mark at the end of gravity's sentence. And maybe that's the lesson, that at the very edges of understanding, the universe still holds its secrets, that no matter how far we peer into the darkness, there will always be places where light cannot reach. Places where mystery is not just allowed, but necessary. The singularity reminds us that knowledge has limits, that not every question has an answer, that some truths are hidden not because they are unreachable, but because they are part of a deeper order we haven't yet begun to grasp. And yet, we still look, we still ask. We still dream of decoding the singularity, that not just to understand black holes, but to understand ourselves and the strange, beautiful universe we call home. Accelerating universe expansion. Imagine looking up at the night sky, not just to admire the stars, but to peer back in time. Every beam of starlight is a message from the past, a silent whisper from galaxies millions, even billions of light years away. And for most of human history, we believed those galaxies were slowing down, that the pull of gravity, ever patient, was gradually reeling them back in. The universe, we thought, might someday stop expanding, maybe even collapse. But then came the shock. In the late 1990s, two teams of astronomers studied distant supernovae, exploding stars used as cosmic mile markers, and discovered something no one expected. The light from those supernovae was dimmer than predicted, not because they were weaker, but because they were farther away. The galaxies weren't just drifting apart, they were accelerating. Something was pushing the universe outward, faster and faster, not just stretching space, but speeding it up, as if the very fabric of the cosmos had pressed its foot on the gas. This force, unknown, invisible, and utterly dominant, was named dark energy. We don't know what it is. We only know what it does. It fills space, yet isn't made of matter. It doesn't clump like galaxies or scatter like particles. It doesn't shine, bounce, or bend, but it makes up nearly 70% of everything. A vast, silent energy that acts like negative gravity, repulsive instead of attractive. The more space there is, the more dark energy seems to emerge, and the faster the expansion becomes. The result? Galaxies are being flung away from each other faster with each passing moment. The vast cosmic web is unraveling. Distances between clusters grow too great for gravity to resist. Eventually, galaxies will vanish from view, not because they cease to exist, but because they'll be moving away faster than light can reach us. This isn't just a curiosity, it's our future. If the expansion continues, the night sky will grow darker. The stars we see today will fade. Entire galaxies will cross a point of no return, slipping beyond the edge of our cosmic horizon. In trillions of years, the universe could become cold, empty, and silent, a lonely island of matter adrift in infinite darkness. Some theories suggest the acceleration could increase without limit, tearing galaxies, stars, planets, even atoms apart in a final event called the Big Rip. Others propose the energy could decay or change, reversing the expansion or collapsing the universe in a new cycle. But right now, we simply don't know. Dark energy is the single most dominant force in the cosmos, and yet it remains one of the greatest mysteries in all of science. It humbles us. It reminds us that for all our progress, for every equation and telescope and satellite, there is still so much we don't understand. Why is the universe accelerating? What is dark energy made of? Why now? We don't have the answers, only the questions. And yet maybe that's the beauty of it. The universe is not a static thing. It's not a fixed frame with a clear beginning and end. It's alive, expanding, changing, driven by forces we can't yet see. And in that relentless expansion, that cosmic push outward, is a strange kind of poetry. The idea that the universe is still growing, still reaching, still becoming. Not just a snapshot in time, but a story still unfolding. We are a part of that story, brief, fragile, awake for just a cosmic moment, but while we're here, we look up, we measure the stars, we ask the impossible questions. And somewhere in that curiosity, in that flicker of wonder, we begin to understand the vast, accelerating mystery that carries us all. Fermi paradox. The night sky is full of stars, hundreds of billions in our galaxy alone, and around those stars, planets, rocky, gassy, icy. Some small, some Earth-like, some in that perfect zone, not too hot, not too cold, where liquid water could flow and life could thrive. Statistically, the numbers are overwhelming. With so many worlds, it seems almost certain that we are not alone. And yet, silence. No signals, no visitors, no whispers from distant civilizations, just the quiet hum of stars and the emptiness between them. This is the Fermi paradox, named after physicist Enrico Fermi, who famously asked, "Where is everybody?" The question sounds simple, almost naive, but behind it lies one of the most profound contradictions in science. If intelligent life is common in the universe, why haven't we seen any evidence of it? Our galaxy is over 13 billion years old. If a civilization arose on just one planet, even 1 billion years before us, they would have had ample time to spread across the stars. Even at sublight speeds, they could have colonized the galaxy millions of years ago. If life is common, why does the cosmos feel so empty? There are many possible answers, each one stranger than the last. Maybe we're alone. Maybe intelligent life is far more rare than we think. Perhaps complex life requires a precise chain of improbable events, biological, chemical, environmental, that almost never align. Maybe Earth is an anomaly, a lucky accident in a quiet corner of space. Or maybe intelligent civilizations do arise, but they don't last. Perhaps they destroy themselves through war, pollution, or unchecked technology before they can reach the stars. Civilizations may be common but brief, rising like sparks and fading just as quickly, never long enough to make contact. There's another possibility. They're out there, but they're quiet, watching, waiting, following a code of silence. Something like a cosmic quarantine. The zoo hypothesis suggests we're being deliberately left alone, studied from afar like animals in a preserve. Not ready yet, not mature enough. Or maybe we're looking the wrong way. Maybe alien life doesn't communicate with radio waves. Maybe their signals are too advanced or too strange for us to recognize. Like ants trying to understand the internet. Maybe the messages are all around us, but we simply don't know how to listen. Then again, maybe the paradox isn't a paradox at all. Maybe the universe is just big. So big that even if life is everywhere, the distances are vast enough to keep us apart. Signals weaken, time stretches. A conversation across galaxies could take millions of years. We might not be alone, We might just be out of sync. But in the end, the silence remains. The Fermi paradox is not just about aliens, it's about us, our hopes, our fears, our place in the cosmos. It challenges the idea that intelligence is inevitable or that progress guarantees survival. It forces us to ask hard questions. What makes a civilization endure? What makes life meaningful in a universe that may never answer back? And yet we keep listening. We build telescopes, scan the sky, send probes and golden records and radio pulses into the dark, because even in the face of silence, something in us refuses to stop asking. Maybe one day the sky will speak. Or maybe it already has, quietly, indirectly, in the mystery itself. Because sometimes the most haunting question isn't, are we alone? It's, why does it matter so much that we aren't? And perhaps in that question lies the deepest truth of all, time dilation. Imagine two clocks. One sits on Earth, ticking away in the comfort of gravity's pull. The other travels on a spaceship, racing through space at near the speed of light. You synchronize them before departure, but when the ship returns, something strange has happened. The clocks no longer agree. The one on the ship is behind. Time has passed more slowly for it. Same universe, same moment, different realities. This is time dilation. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time is not fixed. It's not a universal rhythm beating steadily across the cosmos. Time is flexible, elastic. It stretches and compresses depending on two things: speed and gravity. The faster you move through space, the slower you move through time, and the deeper you fall into gravity, the more time slows around you. Not just in theory, in reality. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station experience time slightly slower than we do on Earth. Their clocks tick just a little behind ours, not by much, but enough to measure. Enough to matter. Take it further and the effect grows stranger. Near a black hole, for instance, time distorts dramatically. As you approach the event horizon, the point of no return, seconds begin to stretch. From your perspective, time flows normally, but to an outside observer you seem to move in slow motion. In fact, if you hovered just above a black hole's surface, time would crawl so slowly that entire centuries could pass in the universe beyond you. This isn't science fiction, it's been tested. GPS satellites orbiting above the Earth must correct for time dilation to function properly. Without accounting for the effects of both speed and gravity, your phone's location would drift by miles each day. But perhaps the most profound part of time dilation isn't what it tells us about clocks, it's what it tells us about time itself. Time isn't absolute, it depends on where you are, how fast you're going, and what you're near. It bends and flows with the fabric of space like currents in a river. There is no single shared now across the universe. Two events that are simultaneous in one frame of reference may not be in another. The past, present, and future are no longer rigid steps, they're flexible, relative, and deeply woven into space. It's unsettling and beautiful, because it means that time is more than a backdrop. It's part of the structure of reality, and we, moving through space, are also moving through time in ways we barely notice. Every second that passes is unique to our path, our position, our speed. We're all living slightly different versions of now. Time dilation doesn't just change how we measure time, it changes how we feel it. It suggests that time is not a river flowing past us, but a dimension we move through, just like space. It means that time travel, at least to the future, is not only possible, it's already happening. So the next time you look at a clock, remember, it's not counting out a universal truth, it's whispering a local story. 1. written by motion, by gravity, by the hidden curves of space. And maybe that's the wonder of it, that time isn't something that happens to us. It's something we shape, bend, and ride, 1 second at a time. Quantum superposition. Imagine a coin flipping through the air, heads or tails, it's undecided. But what if, in the quantum world, that coin isn't just spinning? What if, until you catch it, it's both heads and tails at the same time? This is quantum superposition. At the heart of quantum mechanics lies a strange and beautiful idea. Particles can exist in multiple states, simultaneously. An electron can spin both up and down. A photon can travel through 2 slits at once. A bit of matter can be here and there. Until we observe it, a particle doesn't settle into one state. It exists in all possible states at once. Not like a blur, not like uncertainty, but like a real physical mix of possibilities. It's not just theory, it's been tested again and again. In labs around the world, particles are placed into superpositions and their behavior is measured with incredible precision. The results defy classical intuition. And yet they remain consistent, reproducible, and undeniable. To explain this mystery, physicist Erwin Schrödinger proposed a thought experiment. Imagine a cat sealed in a box. Inside, there's a radioactive atom, a vial of poison, and a detector. If the atom decays, the detector triggers, breaking the vial and killing the cat. If it doesn't decay, the cat lives. But in the quantum view, the atom is in a superposition, both decayed and not until observed. So what about the cat? Schrödinger's cat, famously, is both dead and alive. Not in a metaphorical way, in a real quantum superposition. It's not that we don't know the cat's fate, it's that until the box is opened, the cat exists in both states, merged into one impossible moment of life and death. It sounds absurd, but that's quantum reality. And once you observe the system, open the box, check the particle, the superposition collapses. The possibilities vanish. The wave becomes a point. Reality picks a side. But why does observation matter? That's one of the great mysteries of quantum physics. Does the act of measuring cause reality to crystallize, or does it simply reveal a deeper process we don't yet understand? Some interpretations suggest consciousness plays a role. Others propose branching universes, where every outcome happens and we just experience one branch. Still others argue that superposition is just a tool, a mathematical trick that works, even if we don't fully grasp why. Regardless of the interpretation, the implications are staggering. Quantum superposition challenges our very sense of reality. It tells us that the world we see isn't made of fixed objects, but of probabilities. That underneath everything solid is a shimmering field of potential waiting to be observed, waiting to become real. It also powers the future of technology. Quantum computers, for example, use qubits bits that can be in superpositions of 0 and 1. This allows them to perform calculations that would take classical computers millions of years. Superposition isn't just a curiosity, but it's a resource, a new kind of logic, a new kind of power. But maybe its deepest meaning is philosophical. Superposition reminds us that uncertainty is not weakness, that the universe isn't always binary, simple, or clear-cut. Sometimes, truth exists in the in-between, in the unmeasured, in the pause before the answer. So the next time you think something must be either this or that, remember the quantum world, where things can be this and that, until we look, until we choose, until the world decides to reveal itself. And maybe, somewhere deep inside us, We're all just a little bit quantum too. Abiogenesis. Imagine the early Earth, silent, molten, chaotic. Oceans churn beneath a storm-filled sky. There are no plants, no animals, no cells, just chemicals, simple molecules drifting through water, colliding, combining, breaking apart. It's a lifeless world, and yet something stirs. Because somewhere in that primordial soup, life begins. This is abiogenesis, the mystery of how life emerged from non-living matter, how, in a universe made of atoms and energy, something as complex, organized, and self-sustaining as a living cell could arise from molecules with no purpose, no instructions, no design. It's one of the deepest, most haunting questions in science, and, so far, we don't have an answer. We know that life is made of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen. Common elements, forged in stars scattered across the galaxy. We know that the building blocks of life, amino acids, lipids, sugars, can form naturally under the right conditions. In fact, we've created them in the lab, mimicking early Earth's lightning and atmosphere. We've even found them on comets and meteorites. But forming molecules is only the beginning. The real mystery is, how do molecules become alive? How does chemistry cross that invisible threshold into biology? How do you go from random chains of amino acids to proteins with structure and function? From fatty acids floating in water to cell membranes that enclose and protect? From RNA strands to self-replicating systems that pass on information and evolve? At some point, simple molecules must have assembled into more complex systems. Tiny networks that could copy themselves, harness energy, and adapt. Perhaps the first spark was an RNA world where short strands of genetic material both stored information and catalyzed reactions. Maybe fatty bubbles formed primitive cell walls, creating a safe haven for reactions to take place. Maybe mineral surfaces guided molecular interactions, giving structure to chaos. But no one knows exactly how it happened, or where, or how long it took. Abiogenesis is not a single event, but a series of lucky steps, each improbable on its own, yet, taken together, somehow inevitable. It might have happened deep under the ocean, near hydrothermal vents where heat and minerals created chemical gradients, or in shallow ponds where wet-dry cycles concentrated and reshaped molecules, or even in the atmosphere, in droplets suspended in the air. There are theories, experiments, possibilities, but no certainty. And yet here we are. Billions of years later, life has flourished into coral reefs, forests, whales, bees, humans. Trillions of cells descended from the same first spark. A spark that came not from magic or design, but from matter organizing itself in ways so precise, so unlikely, that it feels miraculous. Abiogenesis isn't just about the origin of life. It's about the boundary between the living and the lifeless. It forces us to ask what life is. Is it complexity, replication, metabolism, awareness? Or is life not a thing but a process, a pattern that emerges when the conditions are just right? We may never witness that first moment, but the mystery remains. If life could arise once on Earth, could it happen again, somewhere else? On another planet, under another sun, or even here in the quiet corners of our own oceans and soil? Life beginning again in miniature. Abiogenesis reminds us that we too are made of dust and water and light, that our bodies are built from the same matter as stones and stars, that life, for all its wonder, is rooted in the ordinary dot, and that perhaps the ordinary is more miraculous than we ever knew. Because once, long ago, there was nothing alive. And then, there was. Zerver effect. Imagine trying to watch a candle flame without disturbing the air around it. Just by standing nearby, just by your image, you'll look into your eye, you sit up and show that there isn't a flame. But you subtly change the shape of the flame. In the everyday world, these effects are almost imperceptible, but in the quantum world they are everything. At the smallest scales of existence, the very act of observing something doesn't just reveal it, it changes it. This is the observer effect. In quantum mechanics, particles like electrons and photons don't exist in fixed, definite states the way we imagine classical objects do. Instead, they live in a strange realm of probabilities. They are not located in a single place, moving on a single path, or spinning in one clear direction. They exist in what's called a superposition, a cloud of overlapping possibilities. They are many things at once until someone or something looks. The moment we measure a quantum system, when we ask it a question like, "Where are you?" or "Which way are you spinning?" something strange happens. The superposition collapses. The wave of potential becomes a single outcome, one location, one state, one answer. Before the measurement, the particle is undefined. Afterward, it becomes real. But, here's the paradox, the measurement itself causes this change. This is not just an idea, it's one of the most verified phenomena in modern physics. The famous double-slit experiment is a perfect example. When electrons are fired one at a time through two narrow slits, they create an interference pattern on a screen behind, evidence that each electron acts like a wave, passing through both slits simultaneously. But if we place detectors at the slits to determine which slit the electron goes through, the interference pattern disappears. The electron chooses a slit, it behaves like a particle. Just by measuring it, we've changed how it behaves. This is the observer effect in action. It's not a flaw in the experiment. It's not a trick. It's how reality works at the quantum level. But what does it mean to observe? That's one of the most fascinating aspects of the effect. It doesn't necessarily require a human mind. Most interpretations agree that it's not consciousness doing the work, it's interaction. Measurement means that something in the environment interacts with the system in a way that could, in principle, extract information. That interaction forces the system to settle into a state. Even the gentlest nudge, a passing photon, a tiny vibration dot, can disturb a quantum system enough to collapse its superposition. And once it collapses, the other possibilities are lost. Reality, which was once wide open, becomes a single, definite event. This challenges our intuition. In classical physics, we assume that objects have properties whether or not we're looking. The moon is in the sky even if no one sees it. But in quantum physics, things don't seem to exist in a definite state until they are measured. The observer becomes part of the system, not separate, not passive, essential. It's important to note that this doesn't mean we create reality with our thoughts. That's a misunderstanding. The observer effect isn't about magic or mind control, it's about how physical systems behave under measurement. But it does mean that reality is not entirely independent of the process of observing. It is responsive, interactive. This is why quantum mechanics is so deeply unsettling, and so beautiful. It forces us to rethink what reality means. It suggests that the world is not a pre-written script unfolding on its own, but a kind of dialogue, a dance between potential and actuality, between what could be and what is. Some interpretations, like the Copenhagen interpretation, accept this collapse of the wave function as a fundamental part of the universe. Others, like the many worlds interpretation, argue that all outcomes happen, each in a separate branch of reality, and observation simply determines which branch we experience. Still others propose hidden variables, unknown factors that explain the behavior of particles without invoking collapse. But no matter the interpretation, the effect remains. The observer effect reminds us that we're not just spectators in this universe, we're participants. We shape what we see simply by choosing to look. The act of observation is not neutral, it's creative. It collapses possibility into presence. It makes the invisible real. And maybe, at the deepest level, that's what life is too. A series of moments where we choose to look, to ask, to interact. Where the unknown becomes the known. Where the world responds to our presence. Because in the quantum realm, the universe is not a static place. It is a conversation, dark flow. Imagine the universe as a vast ocean. Galaxies like cosmic islands drift gently with the tide, expanding outward from the Big Bang, carried by the flow of space itself. This expansion is uniform, predictable, and governed by the known laws of physics. But then, astronomers notice something strange. A current in the ocean. A drift that doesn't belong. This is dark flow. In the early 2000s, scientists studying the motion of galaxy clusters using NASA's Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy probe noticed an unexpected movement. Vast clusters of galaxies, spanning billions of light-years, weren't just drifting with the expansion of the universe. They were moving all together in one direction, towards something far beyond the edge of the observable universe. This motion wasn't random, it wasn't noise in the data, it had speed, it had direction, and it defied explanation. According to our best cosmological models, such large-scale movement shouldn't exist. The universe on the largest scales is supposed to be isotropic. No special directions, no preferred places, but dark flow broke that symmetry. The galaxies were headed toward a region of the sky in the constellation Centaurus, not just slowly, fast, over 1,000 kilometers per second, and not just a few galaxies, but entire superclusters, seemingly pulled by an immense unseen force. But what could cause such a pull? No known structure within the observable universe is massive enough. No cluster, no supercluster, no void. The gravitational tug must be coming from beyond what we can see outside our cosmic horizon. Some enormous mass, possibly a region of ultra-dense matter, or something stranger. Some scientists speculate that dark flow might be the fingerprint of a parallel universe. That just beyond our reach lies a neighboring cosmos, exerting a gravitational influence on our own. Others propose it could be a relic from before the Big Bang, an ancient imprint from a previous cosmic cycle, or a tear in the fabric of space-time. But none of these theories can be confirmed, and that's the heart of the mystery. Because the observable universe is just that, observable. Light takes time to travel, and beyond a certain distance the expansion of space itself outpaces the speed of light. We can't see what's there, we can't know, and yet the galaxies move, as if something is calling to them from beyond the veil. Some scientists have challenged the dark flow data, suggesting the signal may be statistical noise or the result of subtle measurement errors. More recent observations using other methods have yielded conflicting results, but the question lingers. Because even if the original measurements are proven wrong, the idea remains provocative that our universe may be influenced by what lies beyond its edge, that the cosmic landscape isn't complete, that something larger, older, or stranger might still be shaping what we see. Dark flow is more than a question of motion. It's a crack in our understanding, a sign that there might be more out there. More than galaxies, more than space, more than time. It reminds us that the universe is not fully known, that even as we map the stars and decode the past, There are still currents we cannot explain, still mysteries pulling at the edges of our models. And maybe, just maybe, dark flow is the universe's way of reminding us that it is bigger than we ever imagined. Because even in the silence between galaxies, something stirs. Something moves. Mpemba effect. Imagine 2 cups of water. One is hot, the other cool. You place them both in a freezer at the same time, expecting the cooler water to freeze first. That's just common sense. Cold water has less heat to lose. But then the unexpected happens. The hot water freezes faster. This strange and counterintuitive result is known as the Mpemba effect. Named after Erasto Mpemba, a Tanzanian student who observed this phenomenon in the 1960s, the Mpemba effect defies our everyday expectations about temperature and cooling. When Mpemba noticed hot ice cream mixtures freezing faster than cooler ones, his teachers didn't believe him. But he was right, and the effect he described has been observed in various forms ever since. Hot water, under certain conditions, does seem to freeze faster than cold. But why? That's the mystery. Scientists have been puzzled for decades. Because water doesn't behave like a simple substance. It expands when it freezes. It forms hydrogen bonds. Its molecules interact in complex dynamic ways. And the path from liquid to solid isn't just about losing heat. It's about how the water behaves on the way. One possible explanation is evaporation. Hot water evaporates more quickly, reducing its overall volume. Less water means less freezing time. Another possibility lies in convection, how the water circulates as it cools. Hot water may circulate differently, cooling more evenly and allowing ice to form faster in certain regions. There's also the structure of the water itself. Heating water may temporarily break apart molecular clusters, allowing it to freeze more easily later on. And the container matters too. How it conducts heat, whether it encourages frost formation or how it interacts with the cooling environment. Even dissolved gases, pressure differences, and supercooling effects may play a role. In truth, it's likely not one single cause. It's a symphony of variables, subtle, interconnected, and difficult to control. That's why experiments sometimes show the Mpemba effect and sometimes don't. It doesn't always happen, and when it does, it can depend on the precise setup, the purity of the water, the shape of the container, even the freezer itself. But despite its unpredictability, the Mpemba effect remains a symbol of scientific humility. It reminds us that even the most ordinary substances, like water, can still surprise us, that common sense doesn't always predict nature, that science isn't just about explaining what we expect, but noticing what we don't. Because Mpemba was just a student, he wasn't trying to rewrite physics. He simply paid attention to what others ignored. He saw something strange and refused to dismiss it. And maybe that's the deeper message. That discovery doesn't always begin with complex theories or billion-dollar labs. Sometimes it begins with a scoop of ice cream, with curiosity, with the courage to ask, why does this happen? The Mpemba effect remains an open question, a quiet little paradox in a cup of water. A reminder that even in a world shaped by laws and logic, there are still moments of wonder, still places where mystery lingers, still small, strange phenomena that whisper, "You don't know everything yet." Vacuum energy. Imagine a perfect vacuum, a place of total emptiness. No matter, no atoms, no light, nothing to touch, nothing to feel, nothing to see, just a dark, infinite silence. In classical physics, this is what a vacuum was thought to be, the absence of all things. But in the quantum world, that silence is deceptive. Because in truth, emptiness is never empty. This is vacuum energy. or the strangest and most counterintuitive phenomena in modern physics. At the smallest scales, the fabric of space itself is restless. Even when all particles are removed, when there is no heat, no light, no matter, something still flickers, something still stirs beneath the surface of nothing. Quantum mechanics tells us that uncertainty is baked into the universe. You can't know a particle's position and momentum exactly at the same time. And because of that uncertainty, even a vacuum, a space where nothing exists, dark, can never truly be still. Virtual particles continuously emerge from the void, pop into existence, and vanish again just as quickly. They borrow energy from nothing and pay it back in the blink of an eye. These virtual particles aren't just mathematical curiosities. We can detect their effects. In the Casimir effect, two uncharged metal plates placed extremely close together in a vacuum are pushed toward each other, not by gravity, not by magnetism, but by nothing. Or more accurately, by the difference in quantum fluctuations on either side of the plates. The vacuum outside the plates teems with more possible fluctuations than the narrow space between them. The result? A gentle but measurable force generated by the energy of the vacuum itself. This hidden energy, this buzzing, chaotic sea beneath apparent stillness, is what we call vacuum energy. But the implications stretch far beyond laboratory plates and quantum foam. In cosmology, vacuum energy may be the key to one of the greatest mysteries of the universe, why it's expanding faster and faster. When astronomers observed distant supernovae in the late 1990s, they expected to find that the universe's expansion was slowing down due to gravity. Instead, they discovered that it was speeding up. Something unseen, something woven into the structure of space, was pushing galaxies apart. This mysterious force was named dark energy. One leading theory is that dark energy is vacuum energy, that the energy of empty space is a zero but instead has a pressure that pushes outward. The more space there is, the more vacuum energy exists, and the more vacuum energy exists, the faster the universe expands. A runaway effect embedded in the very architecture of reality. But there's a problem, a big one. When physicists try to calculate how much vacuum energy should exist, the numbers are staggering. According to quantum field theory, the amount of energy in empty space should be 10,120 times greater than what we observe. That's a 1 followed by 120 zeros. The largest discrepancy between theory and observation in the history of science. It's been called the worst prediction physics has ever made. Why the mismatch? No one knows. It may be that our understanding of quantum fields is incomplete, or that some unknown mechanism cancels out most of the vacuum energy before it can shape the universe. Or perhaps we're missing a deeper theory on quantum physics into a single framework. Vacuum energy sits at this intersection. It's both a clue and a mystery, a whisper from the edge of what we know. And yet it's not just a cosmic curiosity. It's a reminder that reality is layered, that beneath the world of objects and forces lies a deeper structure, dark, alive, fluctuating, unpredictable. Even nothing is full of potential. Even the void is pregnant with energy. Philosophically, this is profound. It suggests that creation doesn't begin with something. It begins with nothing, or rather, with a nothing that isn't really nothing at all. The Big Bang may not have erupted from absolute emptiness, but from a sea of vacuum energy, a restlessness that made everything else possible. So the next time you picture a void, imagine it differently, not as silence, but as a quiet hum, not as stillness, but as hidden motion, not as absence, but as possibility. Because in the quantum world, even emptiness is alive. And from that invisible energy, the dance of nothing, everything you see everything you are, may have been born. Consciousness origin. Imagine sitting quietly, eyes closed. You're not moving, but inside your mind something astonishing is happening. You feel the warmth of the sun on your skin. You hear the distant sound of birdsong. You remember your name. You know that you exist. This is consciousness. Not just thoughts, not just memories, but the raw, immediate experience of being, of having an inner world, of seeing, feeling, wanting, thinking. Somehow inside the soft grey folds of your brain electricity sparks, and out of that chemistry you emerge. But how? This is the mystery of the origin of consciousness. The question of how brain activity gives rise to subjective experience, how a mass of neurons firing in patterns can create the feeling of color, the taste of chocolate, the ache of loss. How matter becomes mind. We understand the brain better than ever before. We can measure electrical signals, map neural pathways, and watch regions of the brain light up during thoughts, decisions, and dreams. We know that different areas of the brain are involved in attention, memory, emotion, and perception. We know that when certain parts are damaged, consciousness changes. And yet, none of this explains how or why experience arises at all. This is known as the hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers. The easy problems involve understanding how the brain processes information, reacts to stimuli, or controls the body. But the hard problem asks something deeper. Why does any of this feel like something? Why is there an inside to experience? You can program a computer to recognize faces, follow commands, and make decisions, but there's no reason to believe the computer feels anything. No sense of what it's like to be that machine. So what makes a brain different? Some scientists suggest that consciousness emerges from complexity, that when a system becomes intricate enough, like the human brain with its 86 billion neurons, subjective experience simply arises as an emergent property. Like a whirlpool in water, consciousness may be the pattern itself, not a thing, but a process. Others believe consciousness might be tied to specific forms of information processing. Theories like integrated information theory, IIT, argue that consciousness arises when information is shared and interconnected in certain structured ways. If a system can process information in a deeply unified, irreducible way, it may be conscious. Still others explore quantum theories of consciousness, proposing that consciousness might arise not just from neurons and synapses, but from quantum events inside cells, perhaps even inside the microtubules of neurons. These ideas remain controversial, but they speak to our desperation to bridge the gap between the physical brain and the mystery of the mind. Then there are those who suggest that we're asking the wrong question, that maybe consciousness isn't something the brain produces, like light from a bulb. Maybe it's something the brain receives or filters, a deeper layer of reality that our biology tunes into, like a radio dial tuning to a specific frequency. A radical idea, but one that has been echoed in philosophy and mysticism for centuries. Still, we don't know. Consciousness remains a blank space in our understanding, a mirror we cannot look into directly. We know what it feels like to be aware, but we don't know what awareness is. We don't know how to measure it, or how to explain why it arises in us and perhaps not in other things. And yet, this mystery is at the heart of everything we care about. Without consciousness there is no joy, no sorrow, no beauty, no wonder. There are no questions to ask, no answers to seek. Consciousness is the canvas on which all experience is painted. It is the most intimate thing we know, and the most elusive. So we continue to ask, to study, to wonder. How does the brain make the mind? How does the physical become the personal? And will we ever truly understand the spark that turns a network of cells into a self? Proton spin crisis. Imagine holding a proton in your hand. If that were even possible, it's one of the fundamental building blocks of matter, part of every atom in your body, in the earth, in the stars. You might expect that by now we would understand something so basic, but hidden inside this tiny particle is a mystery that has baffled physicists for decades. It's called the proton spin crisis. In the world of quantum physics, spin is a kind of intrinsic angular momentum. It's not exactly spinning like a planet or a top, more like a quantum property that gives particles their magnetic behavior. Every proton has a spin of 1/2, a fundamental trait that influences how atoms behave and how matter interacts. And since protons are made of 3 quarks, 2 up quarks and 1 down quark, you'd think the spin of the proton comes from the spin of those 3 parts. But that's not what we found. In the late 1980s, experiments at CERN shocked the physics world. When researchers smashed particles together and studied how the spin of protons responded, they discovered something strange. The spins of the quarks inside the proton only accounted for about 30% of the proton's total spin. The rest? Unknown. This was the beginning of the proton spin crisis, a profound problem at the heart of particle physics. How can a proton made of 3 spinning quarks end up with a total spin that doesn't match the sum of its parts? The answer, it turns out, may lie in the complex, chaotic storm that exists inside every proton. Because quarks don't exist in isolation. They're held together by the strong nuclear force, one of the 4 fundamental forces of nature, carried by particles called gluons. These gluons bind the quarks together in a violent, turbulent sea of energy. And they're not just passive glue. Gluons themselves may carry spin, and they constantly pop into and out of existence, creating an internal dynamic that's far more complicated than once thought. In addition, the quarks inside the proton are not still. They move. They orbit. They interact. And like planets orbiting a star, their orbital motion may contribute to the total spin of the proton. In fact, recent studies suggest that much of the missing spin might come not from the spin of the quarks themselves, but from how they move around inside the proton. So now, physicists believe the proton's spin arises from 3 sources: the spin of the quarks, the spin of the gluons, and the orbital angular momentum of both. But we still don't have a complete picture. Experiments at facilities like RHIC, the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider, and future work at the Electron Ion Collider are trying to map the internal structure of the proton in more detail than ever before. Bit by bit, we're peeling back the layers of this tiny puzzle. And yet the proton spin crisis remains unresolved. It reminds us that even the most basic particles are more mysterious than they seem. That matter is not made of simple building blocks but of dynamic, shifting, energetic systems. That deep inside the proton there is motion, chaos, and uncertainty, and from that emerges the stability of the universe. It also humbles us. Because the proton, a particle discovered over 100 years ago, is still holding on to secrets, still challenging the best minds in physics, still reminding us that understanding the smallest things may be the hardest task of all. The spin of the proton isn't just a number, it's a question, a doorway into the hidden machinery of matter, a quiet crisis at the core of what we are. And the more we look, the more we learn that simplicity is an illusion. Even the tiniest particles carry mysteries vast enough to fill the cosmos. Big Bang's cause. Imagine the entire universe, every galaxy, every atom, every second of time compressed into a single point, a singularity, infinitely dense, infinitely small. No space, no time, no matter, no energy as we know it, just pure potential. And then, for reasons still unknown, it happens. The universe begins. This is the Big Bang. Not an explosion in space, but the sudden expansion of space itself, the birth of time, the unfolding of reality. In less than a fraction of a second, the universe erupts from that singular point and begins to cool, expand, and form the seeds of everything we know. But what caused it? What came before the Big Bang? What triggered the singularity to burst into being? This is one of the deepest mysteries in all of science, and one we don't yet have an answer for. The Big Bang theory describes what happened after the beginning, how the universe expanded, how particles formed, how galaxies evolved. But it doesn't explain what caused the initial moment itself. The singularity is a mathematical boundary, a point where our known laws of physics break down. Time and space, as we understand them, cease to exist. Asking what came before the Big Bang is like asking what's north of the North Pole. And yet we ask anyway. Some theories suggest that the singularity wasn't the beginning, but a transition, that the Big Bang was a bounce, the rebound of a previous universe that collapsed under its own gravity and was reborn. Others imagine a multiverse, where countless universes bud off from a larger cosmic structure, each with its own Big Bang, its own laws, its own timeline. There's also the idea of quantum fluctuations, that on the tiniest scales of existence, even nothing isn't truly empty, that random, spontaneous fluctuations in a quantum vacuum could give rise to a universe. In this view, the Big Bang might not be the result of a cause in the traditional sense, but an inevitable fluctuation in the fabric of existence. Still others propose that time itself began with the Big Bang, that before the Big Bang simply has no meaning because time didn't exist. No ticking clock, no cause and effect, no sequence of events, just the sudden appearance of space, time, and energy from a state we cannot currently describe. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're grounded in mathematics, in cosmological observations, in the edges of particle physics. But none of them are confirmed. The cause of the Big Bang remains behind a veil, shielded by the limits of our understanding, and perhaps by the nature of reality itself. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the Big Bang's cause isn't just a scientific question, but a philosophical one. A reminder that some questions might never be fully answerable within the framework of the universe they gave rise to. Maybe asking why the universe exists is like a wave trying to understand the ocean. Still, we keep asking. We look into the deep past. We listen to the echo of the Big Bang, the cosmic microwave background radiation still cooling across the sky. We build models. We imagine what might lie beyond the edge of time, not to find simple answers, but because the question itself is sacred. What caused the Big Bang? We don't know. But the fact that we can ask the question, that we exist inside the mystery with minds capable of wondering about beginnings, is itself a kind of miracle. And maybe, just maybe, the mystery is the beginning. Quantum tunneling. Imagine standing before a tall wall. You don't have enough energy to climb it. You can't go over it. You can't go around it. In the classical world, you're stuck. The laws of physics say you simply don't have what it takes to get to the other side. But in the quantum world, you might just appear on the other side anyway. This is quantum tunneling, one of the most bizarre and fascinating phenomena in physics, a process where particles defy classical expectations and pass through barriers they shouldn't be able to cross. Not by breaking the rules, but by obeying a deeper, stranger set of them. In classical physics, if a particle doesn't have enough energy to overcome a barrier, it's stuck, like a ball rolling up a hill that runs out of momentum and rolls back down. But quantum particles aren't little balls. They behave like waves, spreading out in space, existing as a cloud of probabilities. And those waves don't just stop at barriers, they bleed through. On the other side of the wall, there's still a faint ripple, a whisper of possibility. And sometimes that possibility becomes real. There's a small chance, governed by the mathematics of quantum mechanics, that the particle will tunnel through the barrier and appear on the other side, even though it never had the classical energy to get there. It didn't climb over, it didn't break through. It just appeared. As if the wall weren't quite real, as if reality itself had cracks in it. This isn't just theory, it's observed in nature. It's the reason nuclear fusion happens in stars. Protons in the sun don't have enough energy to overcome their mutual repulsion, and yet they fuse thanks to quantum tunneling. It's also the principle behind quantum tunneling microscopes, which can image surfaces at the atomic scale by measuring tunneling currents between a tiny tip and a surface. And in electronics, tunneling plays a vital role in semiconductors, transistors, and devices that power your phone, your computer, and nearly everything modern. Without tunneling, the technology you're using right now wouldn't exist. But beneath the science lies a deeper mystery. Because tunneling suggests that particles don't follow a single predictable path. That at the smallest scales, reality is fuzzy, probabilistic, and filled with possibilities we never see in the everyday world. It tells us that the universe isn't a locked system, it's a network of chances, where even the impossible becomes possible if you look closely enough. It also invites strange questions. Could entire molecules tunnel? Could consciousness? Could we? Probably not. But the question itself reveals how fragile our assumptions can be. Quantum tunneling reminds us that even in the face of barriers, nature finds a way. That the universe is not entirely rigid. That sometimes the most extraordinary outcomes emerge not by force, but by the subtle permission of quantum law. It whispers of hidden paths, of silent escapes, of particles slipping through the cracks in reality simply because they can. And maybe, just maybe, it's also a metaphor for those moments in life when you find yourself up against a wall with no energy to climb, no path forward, no chance to succeed. Until, against all logic, you do. Because the universe is built on more than certainty. It's built on chance, on possibility, on the quiet, astonishing truth that even the smallest things can pass through walls, Earth's solid inner core. Imagine descending deep beneath the Earth's surface, past the crust we walk on, through the flowing mantle, and into the scorching outer core. Temperatures rise above 5,000 degrees Celsius. Pressure builds to over 3.5 million times atmospheric pressure. The environment becomes stranger than anything we experience above. And at the very center, you reach something unexpected. A solid metal heart. This is Earth's inner core. Roughly 1,200 kilometers in radius, the inner core is composed primarily of iron and nickel. It's as hot as the surface of the sun, so hot, in fact, that it should be molten. And yet it's solid, not soft, not liquid, but rigid, dense, and metallic. It's one of the great paradoxes of planetary science. How can something so hot remain so solid? The answer lies in pressure. At the Earth's center, the weight of the planet itself presses inward with unimaginable force. That pressure is so intense it overrides the effect of the heat. Normally, heat makes matter expand, shift, melt, but under extreme pressure, atoms are squeezed so tightly together that they can no longer move freely. They are locked into a fixed structure. even in temperatures that would vaporize most materials. In essence, the inner core is a battle between temperature and pressure wins. But the mystery deepens. The inner core doesn't just sit there. It behaves in surprising ways. Seismic studies show that it may be slowly rotating at a different rate than the rest of the planet. Some data even suggest it wobbles or oscillates slightly. And its composition may not be uniform. Parts of it appear to be more crystalline, others more fluid in structure. Some scientists believe it has a distinct inner core, a core within the core with a different alignment of atoms. We can't drill to the center of the Earth. We can't observe the core directly. Everything we know comes from seismic waves, vibrations from earthquakes that pass through the planet and reveal its internal structure. These signals bend, slow, or reflect depending on what they pass through, and from that we paint a picture of the core, built entirely from echoes. And still, questions remain. Why is the inner core solid while the outer core, made of similar materials, remains liquid? What caused the core to begin forming in the first place? And why is it still growing, slowly crystallizing as the Earth cools, millimeter by millimeter each year? This quiet growth powers something extraordinary, Earth's magnetic field. As the liquid outer core churns around the solid inner core, it generates a dynamo effect, producing the invisible magnetic shield that protects our planet from solar radiation and cosmic particles. Without this field, Earth would be bombarded by high-energy radiation, and life as we know it might not exist. So this paradoxical solid, hotter than molten metal yet rigid as iron, sits at the center of our world, anchoring the very forces that make Earth habitable. It reminds us that the rules of nature aren't always what they seem, that heat doesn't always melt, and pressure can forge stability in the heart of chaos. That even in a place we can never see, never touch, there exists a secret, a solid core in the center of a restless planet. The inner core is more than geology. It's a symbol that within heat there can be order, within turmoil there can be structure, and even in the most extreme conditions imaginable, something can endure. Geomagnetic reversals. Imagine a compass needle, faithfully pointing north. Now imagine one day, without warning, it begins to point south. Birds lose their bearings, navigation systems falter, the invisible force that shields our planet has shifted. This is a geomagnetic reversal. An event where Earth's magnetic field flips, and the north and south magnetic poles trade places. It sounds like science fiction, but it's a well-documented fact of planetary history. Earth's magnetic field has reversed hundreds of times over the past few 100 million years. The last full reversal occurred about 780,000 years ago, known as the Brunus-Matuyama reversal. And scientists believe we may be overdue for another. But what causes this flip, and why is it so unpredictable? Earth's magnetic field is generated by the motion of molten iron in the outer core, a swirling, churning sea of metal about 3,000 kilometers beneath the surface. This movement acts like a giant dynamo, converting kinetic energy into a magnetic field that extends far into space. It protects the planet from harmful solar and cosmic radiation, deflecting charged particles and forming the glowing auroras near the pole. But the dynamo is not perfectly stable. Over time, the flows of molten metal can shift. The magnetic field weakens, bends, and sometimes becomes chaotic. During a reversal, the field doesn't just flip like a switch. It fades, fragments, and reorients over thousands of years. Multiple poles can form, drift, and vanish. Eventually, the field stabilizes again, but with the poles reversed. These flips don't happen at regular intervals. Some reversals are separated by a few 100,000 years. Others take millions. There have even been periods where no reversals occurred for tens of millions of years, magnetic supercrons. And between full reversals, there are sometimes excursions, temporary partial flips, that don't fully take hold. The unpredictable nature of these events makes them difficult to study, but we can track them by examining magnetic minerals in ancient rocks. As lava cools, particles of magnetite align with Earth's magnetic field. These frozen fingerprints allow scientists to map out a record of geomagnetic history, like tree rings but written in stone. So what would happen if Earth's magnetic field flipped today? It wouldn't be an instant disaster. Life on Earth has survived countless reversals before. The process unfolds slowly, over thousands of years. But during the transition, the magnetic field would weaken significantly. That could mean increased exposure to solar radiation, especially at the surface and in low Earth orbit. Satellites could be damaged. Navigation systems that rely on magnetic north would need to be recalibrated. Migratory animals that use the magnetic field to navigate might become confused. But Earth's atmosphere would still protect us. The field might fade, but it wouldn't disappear. The planet would remain habitable. Still, a reversal would pose challenges, especially to our technology and infrastructure, which didn't exist the last time the field flipped. Some scientists believe we may be entering such a transition now. The magnetic field has been weakening for over 150 years. The South Atlantic Anomaly.A region, where the field is especially weak, has been growing. The poles are drifting faster than usual. But whether this marks the beginning of a full reversal is still unknown. Geomagnetic reversals remind us that even forces we think of as permanent, like north and south, can change. That beneath our feet, the Earth is alive with motion and mystery, that the planet is not static but dynamic and evolving, shaped by invisible currents deep within. The compass that always points north is not a promise, it's a temporary agreement. And someday it may change its mind. Neutrino mass. Imagine a particle so small, so ghostly, it can pass through an entire planet without noticing. Trillions of them stream through your body every second, and yet you never feel a thing. These are neutrinos, that elusive, nearly massless particles that flood the universe. For decades, scientists believed neutrinos were completely massless, weightless wisps produced in nuclear reactions, speeding through space at the speed of light. They barely interact with matter, and for a long time they seemed more like mathematical ghosts than real particles. But then something strange happened. Neutrinos come in three types or flavors: electron neutrinos, muon neutrinos, and tau neutrinos. As physicists began studying them in greater detail, they noticed that neutrinos weren't staying in their assigned flavor. They were changing oscillating from one type to another as they traveled. An electron neutrino created in the Sun might arrive at Earth as a muon neutrino, or a tau, or back again. This transformation is only possible if neutrinos have mass. It was a groundbreaking revelation. In order for neutrinos to shift between flavors, they must carry at least a tiny amount of mass, something previous theories had ruled out. This discovery earned the 2015 Nobel Prize in Physics and forced scientists to revise the Standard Model, our most trusted framework for understanding particle physics. But here's the twist. We still don't know how much neutrinos have. We only know they have some, so small it's difficult to measure. Lighter than electrons, lighter than anything else we know. They're the most abundant massive particles in the universe, yet we know less about them than almost any other, and the mystery deepens. Neutrino oscillation doesn't just imply mass, it suggests that each flavor of neutrino is a mixture of multiple mass states. These mass states don't align perfectly with the flavor states, leading to the constant transformation. It's as if you tried to walk in a straight line, but the ground beneath you kept tilting slightly, changing your direction with every step. The implications are staggering. Neutrinos might hold the key to understanding why the universe exists in the first place. In the early moments after the Big Bang, matter and antimatter should have annihilated each other completely, but something tipped the scales in favor of matter. Some physicists believe neutrinos, or a related class of particles called sterile neutrinos, may be the missing link in that cosmic imbalance. They may even hint at physics beyond the standard model, a glimpse of something deeper, something more unified. And yet, for all we've discovered, neutrinos remain shadows. They rarely interact, they don't carry electric charge, they barely leave a trace. We detect them in vast underground detectors, in huge tanks of water or ice, waiting for the occasional flash of light when a neutrino finally bumps into an atom. It's like trying to hear a single raindrop in a thunderstorm. But we keep listening, because these tiny particles, so quiet and so small, are whispering secrets about the universe's earliest moments, its deepest laws, and its hidden structure. Neutrinos challenge our assumptions about mass, identity, and stability. They shift, transform, oscillate, never quite what they seem to be. They remind us that even in the tiniest corners of reality, change is constant, identity is fluid, and the invisible may hold the greatest power of all. Neutrinos are not just the most elusive particles in physics. They are its most persistent mystery, Gödel's incompleteness theorems. Imagine trying to build a perfect machine for truth. A system of logic, rules, and symbols so complete that, given enough time, it could answer every mathematical question. A framework where truth could be calculated, like a machine solving puzzles forever. This was the dream of early 20th century mathematics, a hope to reduce all of math to a consistent, complete set of rules, to tame infinity, to prove everything that could be proven. But then came a quiet young logician named Kurt Gödel, and he shattered the dream. In 1931, Gödel published what are now known as the incompleteless theorems. 2 statements that forever changed the landscape of logic, mathematics, and our understanding of certainty itself. The first theorem says this: in any consistent formal system that is powerful enough to describe arithmetic, there are true statements that cannot be proven within that system. In other words, no matter how carefully you build your system, there will always be truths that escape its rules, sentences that are true but unprovable, questions with answers that lie just outside the reach of proof. The second theorem goes even deeper. Such a system cannot prove its own consistency. You cannot use the rules of the system to guarantee that the rules won't eventually contradict themselves. This wasn't a flaw in Gödel's logic, it was the perfect logic of his construction that led to this paradox. He built a mathematical version of the liar's paradox, a self-referential sentence like, "This statement is false." In Gödel's case, it was more like, "This statement is not provable within this system." If it were provable, the system would be inconsistent. If it wasn't provable, then it was true, but unprovable. Either way, the system couldn't contain its own truth. The result was devastating for the dream of a complete, airtight mathematical universe. Gödel proved that no formal system, no matter how elegant, no matter how carefully constructed, can ever capture all truths. There will always be cracks, always be limits, always be truths that live just beyond the horizon. And yet, this isn't just a technical result in logic, it's a philosophical earthquake. It means that certainty has boundaries. that truth is not the same as proof, that even in the most precise domains, arithmetic, logic, the purest mathematics, mystery survives. Gödel's theorems ripple far beyond math. They touch computer science, philosophy, linguistics, even our understanding of the human mind. Some argue that consciousness itself cannot be modeled as a formal system because we seem able to see truths that no system can fully contain. Others caution against stretching the metaphor too far. But either way, Gödel changed the rules of the game. He showed that incompleteness is not a failure, but a fundamental feature of any system rich enough to be interesting. That in trying to understand everything, we are destined to encounter the unknowable. And maybe that's not a flaw. Maybe it's the beauty of it all. That no matter how far we reach with reason, there will always be something more. Something just out of reach, something we can sense but not trap in symbols. Gödel's theorems remind us that logic has its limits. And beyond those limits, truth still waits. Riemann hypothesis. Imagine trying to find a pattern in chaos. You line up all the prime numbers 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, and ask, is there a hidden rhythm here? The primes are the atoms of arithmetic. Numbers divisible only by themselves and 1. They seem to scatter unpredictably across the number line, irregular and wild. But beneath that randomness, many believe there is a deep and elegant order. That belief rests on one of the greatest unsolved problems in mathematics, the Riemann hypothesis. Proposed in 1859 by the brilliant German mathematician Bernhard Riemann, the hypothesis centers around a strange and beautiful object called the Riemann zeta function. It's a complex function, A mathematical expression involving imaginary numbers. A encodes information about the distribution of primes. The key lies in where this function equals 0, 0, its so-called non-trivial zeros. Riemann noticed something remarkable. The first few non-trivial zeros he found all had the same real part, exactly 1/2. He speculated that all such zeros lie on this line in the complex plane, a vertical line known as the critical line. That's the heart of the Riemann hypothesis. All non-trivial zeros of the Riemann zeta function have a real part equal to 1/2. At first glance, this might seem like a narrow technical claim, but its implications are vast. If the hypothesis is true, it would confirm that prime numbers are distributed as regularly as they can be, given their fundamental unpredictability. It would cement the accuracy of many mathematical theorems that rest on the assumption of its truth. The primes would still appear irregular, but that irregularity would be constrained, almost musical, following a hidden harmony across infinity. If false, the consequences would be profound. Countless results in number theory, cryptography, and mathematical physics, results that assume the Riemann hypothesis is true, could suddenly be thrown into doubt. And yet, after more than 160 years, no one has proven it. The hypothesis has been tested computationally for the first 10 trillion non-trivial zeros, and every one lies on the critical line. But in mathematics, 1 billion confirmations are not enough. One counterexample would be fatal. A single zero off the line would unravel the entire idea. The Riemann hypothesis has resisted the best minds for generations. It's one of the 7 Millennium Prize problems, set of unsolved equations identified by the Clay Mathematics Institute, with a $1 million prize for anyone who can solve it. But the prize is not the point. The point is the mystery. The Riemann hypothesis stands as a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that even in the most precise and logical of sciences, there are questions that sit just beyond our reach. It connects the abstract world of imaginary numbers to the most concrete building blocks of math. Primes. It suggests that deep within randomness lies symmetry, that somewhere in the noise there is a song. Mathematicians continue to search. They build new tools, explore new connections, and chase the edges of understanding. Some believe a breakthrough will come from physics, from quantum chaos, or from patterns in random matrices. Others look within number theory itself, hoping to unravel the logic from the inside out. But for now, the Riemann hypothesis remains unproven. It waits, patient and pioneer anomaly. Imagine a spacecraft drifting silently through the vast emptiness of space. No friction, no resistance, just clean, continuous motion guided by gravity and precision physics. This is the realm where Newton and Einstein reign, where every movement should follow a predictable path. But something didn't add up. In the 1980s and 1990s, as NASA's Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 spacecraft journeyed far beyond the outer planets, scientists noticed a tiny, persistent deviation from their expected trajectories. Both spacecraft were slowing down, just slightly, but measurably. It wasn't random noise, it wasn't a fluke. It was the Pioneer anomaly. The anomaly was small, an unexplained acceleration of about 8.74 times 10 to the negative 10 meters per second squared, directed back toward the Sun. That's less than a billionth the acceleration of gravity at Earth's surface. But, over time, it added up. The spacecraft were hundreds of thousands of kilometers behind where they were predicted to be. Something was tugging on them, something unaccounted for. For years, this tiny deceleration puzzled physicists and engineers. Could it be dark matter, a breakdown in general relativity, a new, unknown force of nature? Was it evidence of physics beyond what we understand? A hint of new laws waiting to be discovered? Some speculated that the anomaly might be a sign that gravity behaves differently over long distances. Others wondered if the fabric of space-time itself could be shifting subtly, nudging the spacecraft as they coasted through interstellar space. But science is a patient craft. Researchers scrutinized every detail of the Pioneer missions, the onboard instruments, the trajectory data, the behavior of the antenna, even the heat emitted from the spacecraft's power systems, and slowly a picture began to form. The spacecraft were powered by radioisotope thermoelectric generators, small nuclear devices that produced electricity by generating heat. That heat, in turn, was radiated away by the spacecraft's components. But the emission wasn't perfectly symmetrical. More heat was being radiated in one direction than the other, acting like a faint thruster, gently pushing the spacecraft in the opposite direction. In other words, the spacecraft was slowing down because they were being pushed by their own heat. This explanation, confirmed through detailed thermal modeling and years of reanalysis, appears to account for the anomaly. It wasn't a new force. It wasn't a failure of physics. It was an incredibly subtle engineering detail, overlooked because of its quiet consistency. But even though the mystery may be solved, the Pioneer anomaly still matters. It reminds us how even the tiniest deviations can challenge our understanding, how fragile predictions become at cosmic scales, how patient curiosity can turn anomalies into answers, and how often reality hides in the details. For years, the Pioneer anomaly stood as a symbol of the unknown, a crack in the wall of certainty. And even now, with a likely solution in hand, it carries a deeper message. That the universe will always surprise us. And that sometimes, even the smallest tug in the dark can open the door to discovery. TMB Cold Spot. Imagine the universe as a baby just 380,000 years old. The first light finally breaks free and begins its journey across space. This light, now stretched into microwaves by billions of years of expansion, still surrounds us today. It's called the Cosmic Microwave Background, CMB. a defaint glow from the birth of the cosmos, the earliest visible echo of everything that would ever become. But in this ancient light, there's a blemish, a region that doesn't quite belong, a cold spot. Discovered in 2004 using data from the WMAP satellite and confirmed by ESA's Planck mission, the CMB cold spot is an unusually large area of the sky, over 1,500 times the size of the full moon, where the temperature is noticeably lower than the surrounding regions. Just a tiny fraction of a degree cooler, but in a universe as uniform as the CMB, even tiny deviations matter. And this one was too large, too cold, and too statistically improbable to ignore. According to standard cosmology, temperature fluctuations in the CMB are expected. They represent tiny density variations in the early universe, dot seeds that would later grow into galaxies, stars, and planets. But the cold spot is different. It's not just a small blip. It's a vast, chilling void. And so far, no one fully understands why it's there. One possibility is that the cold spot is just a fluke, a statistical anomaly, that in a universe with trillions of random fluctuations, you're bound to find something that looks suspicious purely by chance, like rolling 100 dice and getting 6 sixes in a row. Rare, but not impossible. But other explanations go deeper. One theory suggests the cold spot may be the imprint of a massive supervoid A region of space containing far fewer galaxies, stars, and matter than average. As light from the CMB passes through this emptier region, it may lose energy due to the integrated Sachs-Wolf effect, arriving slightly cooler than it otherwise would. But even the largest known voids don't fully explain the cold spot's size and depth, and not everyone agrees such a void even exists in the right place. Then comes the more radical idea, cosmic collisions. Some physicists speculate that the cold spot could be the scar of a collision between our universe and another, one bubble universe brushing up against ours in the early moments after the Big Bang. If we live in a multiverse, perhaps this cold region is a fingerprint left by another realm. One we'll never visit, but whose gravity brushed against ours for a fleeting moment in the distant past. There's no consensus, no definitive answer. Just a cold patch in the sky, silent and still, whispering that something about the early universe doesn't quite fit. It stands as a question mark etched into the cosmos. A clue, a glitch, a mystery, calling us to look closer, think deeper, wonder more. The CMB cold spot reminds us that the universe still holds secrets, that even in the ancient light that surrounds us, there are shadows we cannot yet explain. It's a cosmic bruise, a quiet paradox, a hint that our universe may have experienced more than we ever imagined. And maybe, just maybe, it's a doorway into a larger story. One's still waiting to be told. Rate attractor. Imagine the universe as a vast, expanding fabric. Galaxies scattered across it like glitter, each drifting farther apart as space stretches between them. But then, something strange appears in the motion of these galaxies. Something that shouldn't be there. They aren't just coasting outward, they're falling inward. Something massive, something hidden, something pulling. This is the Great Attractor, discovered in the 1970s and 1980s through careful observation of galactic motion. The Great Attractor is not an object we can see, it's a gravitational anomaly. Nevertheless, a mysterious region in space exerting such a strong pull that entire clusters of galaxies, including our own Milky Way, are drifting toward it. Not just slightly, but at over 600 kilometers per second. But here's the paradox, we can't see what's causing it. The Great Attractor lies in a part of the sky obscured by our own galaxy. The zone of avoidance, a dense plain filled with dust and stars that blocks our view of the distant cosmos. It's as if something enormous is on the other side of a thick curtain, and we can only infer its presence by watching how everything moves around it. It's not pulling just us. It's influencing entire superclusters, the Virgo cluster, Hydra, Centaurus, all moving in the same general direction, like cosmic leaves caught in a vast, invisible current. So what is it? Some astronomers believe the Great Attractor may be the gravitational center of a supercluster of superclusters, a massive region of dense galactic matter we now call Laniakea, a name meaning immense heaven. In this view, the Great Attractor isn't a single object, but a gravitational valley, a concentration of matter pulling everything within a certain range toward its depths. Others suggest that even the Great Attractor may be just one part of a much larger motion, possibly toward an even greater mass concentration further out in the Shapley supercluster. If true, then the Great Attractor is just the first clue, the first tug on the line leading us to something even more immense. And yet much about it remains unknown. Because gravity doesn't shine, it doesn't announce itself, it simply pulls, and we only see it when we watch galaxies behave in ways we can't explain. The Great Attractor challenges our maps of the universe. It tells us that mass and structure lie hidden in the cosmic shadows, shaping the motion of everything, even when we can't directly see the cause. It reminds us that the universe isn't evenly spread. It's lumpy, it's clustered, it's filled with unseen valleys and peaks of gravitational influence, structures so large and so far away that they warp the motion of entire galactic neighborhoods. And it reminds us too of humility. Because our galaxy, our solar system, our world, we're not standing still. We're being pulled, drawn slowly but inexorably through space by something beyond our view, something vast, ancient, and still not fully understood. The Great Attractor is a cosmic question mark, a hidden hand, a silent force at the edge of our vision, telling us that even in the grandest scales, the universe still has secrets it hasn't yet revealed, and we are drifting toward them. One galaxy at a time. Water's density anomaly. Imagine a pond on a winter night. The air turns cold, the surface begins to freeze, and ice slowly forms across the top. But beneath that icy shell, the water below remains liquid, protecting the life within. It's a quiet miracle, that one that defies the usual behavior of matter. This is water's density anomaly, the strange fact that water expands when it freezes, becoming less dense, not more. Unlike most substances which contract and become denser as they solidify, water takes the opposite path. And that tiny quirk is part of why life on Earth exists at all. Most materials follow a predictable rule. When cooled, they shrink. Their molecules slow down and pack closer together, making the solid form denser than the liquid. Drop a solid chunk of almost anything into its own liquid form, and it will sink. But not ice. Ice floats. This happens because of water's unique molecular structure. Each water molecule is shaped like a bent V, with two hydrogen atoms bonded to one oxygen atom. These molecules are sticky, they form hydrogen bonds, fragile connections that link neighboring molecules together. At higher temperatures, water molecules jiggle and slip past each other easily, but as water cools and approaches freezing, these hydrogen bonds start locking the molecules into a rigid, crystalline lattice. In this structure, the molecules are actually held farther apart than they are in liquid water. The result? Ice is less dense than water. It expands, it floats. This anomaly peaks just above freezing. At about 4 degrees Celsius, water reaches its maximum density. Below that, as it cools further, it begins to expand again, preparing to crystallize into ice. No other common liquid behaves quite like this. And while it may seem like a small technical detail, it has enormous consequences. Because ice floats, bodies of water freeze from the top down. A frozen layer forms at the surface, insulating the water below from further cooling. Fish, plants, and entire ecosystems can survive beneath the ice, even through brutal winters. If water behaved like other liquids, lakes and oceans might freeze solid from the bottom up, trapping life in a block of ice. This anomaly also affects ocean currents, climate cycles, and the way glaciers interact with the sea. It shapes erosion, weather patterns, and the survival of species. It influences how water behaves in our cells, in clouds, in soil, and in the roots of plants. In short, this one strange property of water ripples outward through biology, geology, and climate. Scientists still marvel at it, because it's not just the expansion that's strange, it's that so many of water's properties are unique. High surface tension, a huge heat capacity, the ability to dissolve more substances than any other liquid, and of course, this density anomaly, an elegant exception to the rule. All of it comes back to the subtle dance of hydrogen bonds, the quiet physics of attraction, vibration, and geometry, nature's design hidden in every snowflake and every glass of ice water. So, the next time you see ice floating in a drink, or a frozen lake shimmering beneath the winter sun, remember, you're witnessing a cosmic loophole, a gentle rebellion against the ordinary. And it's that small defiance that helps make our world alive. Helium superfluidity. Imagine cooling a liquid bit by bit until its motion slows almost to stillness. Molecules tighten, energy drains away, and everything becomes calm. But then, just before absolute zero, something impossible happens. Not stillness, but transformation. This is helium superfluidity. At extremely low temperatures, helium-4 undergoes a stunning phase change. Around 2.17 Kelvin dollars, just above absolute zero, it stops behaving like a normal liquid and becomes something utterly alien. It becomes a superfluid, a fluid with zero viscosity, a fluid that flows without resistance, forever. In this state, helium can climb up the walls of containers. It can leak through microscopic cracks that normal liquids can't pass through. It can sit perfectly still in a cup and yet flow endlessly around the rim in a continuous loop. It's not just strange, it's beyond intuition. It behaves like a liquid possessed by quantum laws on a macroscopic scale. The transition is called the lambda point, named after the shape of the curve on a temperature graph. Above this temperature, helium is ordinary. Below it, it becomes superfluid and an entirely new phase of matter. The change is not just thermal, it's quantum. Unlike most substances, helium never solidifies under normal pressure, no matter how cold it gets. Its atoms are too light, too energetic. Even at temperatures close to zero, they still jitter with quantum motion. This constant motion prevents the atoms from settling into a solid crystal, and instead of freezing, helium becomes something else, a collective, coordinated quantum state. The atoms in superfluid helium begin to behave as one, a kind of Bose-Einstein condensate, where individual particles merge into a single quantum wave. The fluid loses its internal friction. Its flow becomes eternal. It can form thin films that creep against gravity, coating surfaces in a frictionless sheet of movement. Scientists have even observed quantized vortices in superfluid helium, tiny whirlpools that spin with fixed amounts of angular momentum. These are direct visual manifestations of quantum mechanics. usually confined to the subatomic world, now visible in a teaspoon of fluid. And perhaps most haunting of all, if you set a container of superfluid helium spinning and then stop the container, the fluid will keep spinning. Not from inertia in the classical sense, but because of its frictionless nature and quantum structure. It remembers its motion. It resists stillness. Helium's superfluidity challenges everything we think we know about matter. It reminds us that temperature is not just a measure of heat, but a gateway to new kinds of order, that deep in the cold, beneath the silence, strange symmetries emerge. It's not just a curiosity of the lab, it's a window into the fundamental rules that govern the universe. Superfluidity connects quantum mechanics, thermodynamics, and the collective behavior of particles. It offers clues to the behavior of neutron stars, the vacuum of space, and the early universe itself. So the next time you think of cold as stillness, remember this. At the edge of absolute zero, helium doesn't freeze. It dances. Silently. Endlessly. Without resistance. And in that motion we glimpse a truth stranger than fiction. A liquid made of quantum dreams, prions. Imagine a disease with no bacteria, no virus, no DNA or RNA, just a protein, a single twisted shape of matter. No genetic code, no instructions, no reproduction in the traditional sense, and yet it spreads, it multiplies, it kills. This is the world of prions. Prions are not alive, they are simply misfolded proteins, visioned, warped versions of normal proteins that exist in the body, particularly in the brain. But somehow this tiny change in shape triggers a devastating chain reaction. The misfolded protein touches a healthy one, and it too misfolds. Then another, and another. A molecular domino effect, converting functional proteins into lethal replicas of itself. No genes, no cell membranes, no replication machinery, just a shape, a dangerous one. And from that shape alone, entire brains can be destroyed. Prion diseases are fatal, untreatable, and terrifying in their simplicity. They include disorders like Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, Kuru, fatal familial insomnia, and bovine spongiform encephalopathy, better known as mad cow disease. In animals and humans alike, these diseases slowly shred the brain, leaving behind a sponge-like texture riddled with holes. The symptoms are equally chilling: memory loss, confusion, hallucinations, loss of coordination, and ultimately, death. There is no cure, no reversal. Once prion damage begins, it cannot be stopped. And all of it, every collapse, every symptom, every fatal outcome begins not with an infection, but with a misfold. It defies everything we once believed about disease. For decades, scientists thought all infectious agents had to carry genetic material. Viruses, bacteria, parasites, all needed DNA or RNA to function, to evolve, to reproduce. But prions don't play by those rules. They don't infect in the usual sense, they corrupt at one protein at a time. The idea was so radical that it was widely rejected when first proposed, but in the 1980 science neuroscientist Stanley Prusiner gathered enough evidence to show that these protein-only particles were not only real, they were responsible for some of the most mysterious diseases ever recorded. In 1997, he won the Nobel Prize for this discovery. Prions can arise spontaneously, from inherited mutations or from contaminated tissue. In some rare cases, a single misfolded protein arising by chance can set off the chain reaction. In others, like Kuru, prions spread through ritual cannibalism, in mad cow disease, through contaminated feed. What makes them even more disturbing is their resistance. Prions are nearly indestructible. They can survive extreme heat, radiation, even standard sterilization techniques. That makes them dangerous not only biologically, but environmentally. Once prions enter a system, whether a body, a surgical instrument, or a food supply, they are incredibly difficult to eliminate. They also challenge our definition of life itself. Because if something can spread, adapt, and destroy, but carries no genes, no cells, no metabolism, what is it? A molecule? A parasite? A shadow? Prions exist in a gray zone, somewhere between chemistry and biology. They are matter with behavior, structure with consequence. And maybe that's the most haunting part, that something so small, so silent, so simple could unmake a brain. Not through brute force, but through persuasion, through a tiny, corrupting whisper of shape, passed from one molecule to the next. Prions remind us that danger doesn't always come from outside. Sometimes it's already within us, waiting, a single fold away from chaos. Quantum spin liquids. Imagine a solid crystal, cold, quiet, and still. Its atoms are locked in place, neatly arranged in a repeating pattern. But deep inside, something strange is happening, not with the atoms themselves, but with a hidden property they carry: spin. Spin is a quantum trait, like a tiny internal compass in every electron. In many materials, these spins align with each other in orderly ways, forming patterns of magnetism. But in some rare and exotic states of matter, no such order ever forms. No matter how cold you make them, the spins never settle. They twist, fluctuate, and remain in constant motion forever. This is the mysterious world of quantum spin liquids. Despite the name, a quantum spin liquid is not a liquid in the usual sense. The material itself is solid, the atoms don't move. But the spins behave like a fluid, flowing, changing, never freezing into a fixed configuration. They are in a state of perpetual quantum fluctuation, even at temperatures near absolute zero. And that's not the only strange thing. In a quantum spin liquid, the electron spins are entangled, a deep, quantum-level connection where the state of one spin is instantly linked to others, even across distance. This entanglement spreads across the entire material, creating a web of quantum correlations that can't be described by classical physics. It's not just disorder, it's structured quantum disorder, a hidden form of organization too subtle for the eye to see. You might expect that as a system cools, its components will settle into some lowest energy arrangement. That's how ice forms from water, or how magnets become magnetic. But in a quantum spin liquid, frustration sets in. Not emotional frustration, but geometric frustration, where the arrangement of atoms makes it impossible for all spins to align in a way that satisfies the system's rules. Imagine 3 electrons arranged in a triangle. If one spin points up and another points down, the third can't satisfy both neighbors at once, so it fluctuates. And this frustration ripples across the whole lattice, leading to a state that never settles. Quantum spin liquids were first proposed by Nobel laureate Philip Anderson in the 1970 CES, but only recently have experiments begun to catch up. Certain materials, like Herbert Smithite or ruthenium-based compounds, show evidence of this exotic behavior. Researchers use neutron scattering, heat capacity measurements, and magnetic susceptibility to detect the signatures of spin liquids. Why does it matter? Because quantum spin liquids aren't just curiosities, they may hold the key to some of the deepest mysteries in physics. Their unique structure allows for the existence of emergent quasi-particles, like spinons, particles that carry spin but no charge. These quasi-particles behave as if the electron has split into parts, something impossible in ordinary materials. And these bizarre properties might be more than just theoretical playgrounds. Quantum spin liquids could one day power fault-tolerant quantum computers. Their deeply entangled states may be used to store and process quantum information in a way that's protected from error, an elusive goal in today's quantum technologies. But for now, quantum spin liquids remain elusive and enigmatic. Hard to create, hard to measure, and harder still to fully understand. They remind us that matter has hidden layers, worlds of interaction and entanglement beneath the surface. That even in perfect crystals there can be storms of quantum motion. That order and disorder aren't always opposites. They can be woven together in ways our classical minds struggle to grasp. Quantum spin liquids are not just exotic, they are whispers from the frontier of physics, a glimpse into a realm where matter dances in permanent uncertainty, and where the ordinary rules are joyfully broken, as they don't freeze. They don't align, they don't stop, and in their endless quantum motion, they may be pointing us toward the future human microbiome. Imagine carrying around a second genome, one that isn't human, one that outnumbers your own cells, one that shapes how you digest food, fight disease, and even think. This is not science fiction, but it's the human microbiome. Inside your body, especially in your gut, lives a vast, invisible ecosystem made up of trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, viruses, and archaea. They're not invaders, they're residents, and together they form a complex and dynamic world that scientists are only beginning to understand. For every human cell in your body there may be at least one microbial cell. And while your human genome contains around 20,000 genes, your microbiome contains millions. These genes encode enzymes you don't have. They break down foods you can't digest on your own. They synthesize vitamins, they train your immune system, they fight off harmful microbes. In many ways they function like a forgotten organ, one that lives inside you but is not you. And yet, it is. Your microbiome begins forming at birth. It's influenced by how you were delivered, vaginal birth or C-section, whether you were breastfed or bottle-fed, what you ate as a child, where you lived, what pets you had. Every antibiotic, every meal, every infection, all of it shapes your microbial identity. No two people have exactly the same microbiome. It is as personal and unique as a fingerprint. But here's where it gets strange. The microbiome doesn't just influence digestion. It seems to affect your mood, weight, immune function, even your behavior. The gut and the brain are connected by a highway of nerves, chemicals, and immune cells, a network known as the gut-brain axis. Microbes in your gut can produce neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. They can influence inflammation, which, in turn, affects mental health. Some studies suggest that imbalances in the gut microbiome, known as dysbiosis, may be linked to conditions like depression, anxiety, autism, obesity, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, and even Alzheimer's disease. We don't yet know if the microbes are causing these problems or merely responding to them. But the connection is undeniable. The microbiome is not just reactive, it's interactive. It responds to what you eat, how you sleep, how you live. High-fiber diets encourage the growth of beneficial bacteria. Processed foods and antibiotics can wipe out diversity. A healthy microbiome isn't defined by the presence of one magic species, but by balance. A rich, diverse community that keeps itself in check. And yet, we're still in the early days of understanding how it all works. The microbiome is incredibly complex. Its composition can change dramatically in response to diet, stress, medication, and illness. Scientists are racing to identify which microbes do what and how to manipulate them safely. Probiotics, prebiotics, fecal transplants, and targeted microbiome therapies are all being explored, but the field is still evolving. What we do know is this: you are not just a human being. You are a superorganism, a walking ecosystem, a host to a universe within. Your thoughts, your immune system, your cravings. None of them exist in isolation. The bacteria in your gut are part of your story, and they are whispering, not loudly, not in words, but in chemicals, enzymes, electric signals, in the quiet language of biology, passed between trillions of microscopic voices. The human microbiome reminds us that we are never truly alone, that within us is a bustling metropolis of life, old as evolution and inseparable from our own survival. And the more we understand it, the more we see that the boundary between self and other is not as clear as we once believed. You are human, but you are also many. And in that symbiosis, a deeper version of health, and of self, may be waiting to be discovered. Octopus intelligence. Imagine meeting a mind unlike any other. One with no skeleton, 3 hearts, and skin that can see, a creature that can solve puzzles, open jars, escape aquariums, and mimic its surroundings with uncanny precision. Not a mammal, not a bird, not even a vertebrate. Just arms, eyes, and a brain that isn't exactly in its head. This is the octopus, one of the most mysterious and intelligent creatures on Earth. But what makes the octopus truly strange is not just its behavior, that it's how it thinks. Unlike humans and most other animals, the octopus doesn't rely on a single centralized brain to process all information. Instead, its nervous system is radically distributed. Of the roughly 500 million neurons in an octopus, over 2/3 are located in its arms. Each arm is, in a sense, semi-autonomous. It can explore, touch, taste, and even make decisions without direct input from the central brain. Scientists have observed octopus arms reacting to stimuli and solving problems independently, cut off from the body, under controlled, humane conditions. An arm can still grasp, manipulate, and respond to touch. It's as if each limb has a mind of its own. And yet, despite this decentralized structure, octopuses exhibit remarkably coordinated and intelligent behavior. They learn by observation. They can recognize individual humans. They remember solutions to problems and even seem to play dots, interacting with objects out of apparent curiosity rather than survival. Some species build shelters, collect tools, and decorate their dens with shells and stones. Others escape enclosures with incredible precision, squeezing their boneless bodies through impossibly small gaps. In captivity, they're known to dismantle plumbing, short-circuit lights, and play pranks on researchers. And then there's their camouflage. Using specialized cells in their skin called chromatophores, octopuses can change their color, texture, and pattern in milliseconds, blending into coral, mimicking sand, or flashing signals to other animals. What's astonishing is that this camouflage is often visual, even though octopuses are colorblind. Their skin, it turns out, may be able to detect light directly seeing that a net-seen district, acting as a kind of distributed sensory net. So what kind of mind is this? It's not like ours. It didn't evolve from primates or mammals or even fish. The octopus line split from ours over 500 million years ago. It is, in essence, an alien intelligence. A completely separate experiment in complex cognition arising from a soft-bodied mollusk. And yet it feels familiar. We recognize something in the octopus's eyes, in its curiosity, in the way it learns, adapts, and interacts with the world. It is utterly different, and yet deeply intelligent. Conscious, perhaps, not in a human way, but in its own strange, fluid form. Scientists are only beginning to understand what octopus intelligence means. Is it self-aware? Does it dream? Does it plan, or just react with extraordinary sophistication? These questions remain open, but the evidence is clear. Octopuses are not mindless instinct machines. They are thinkers, strange, silent, and profoundly gifted. Their intelligence challenges our assumptions about what a mind is. It shows us that consciousness doesn't need a skeleton, that complex thought can emerge from distributed systems, that there are many paths to awareness, and that ours is just one. The octopus is not just smart. It's a living reminder that intelligence is not bound to form, that thought can curl through the ocean with 8 arms and no spine and still grasp something deeper. A mystery, a mirror, a mind from another world, living in ours. Monarch butterfly migration. Imagine a creature that weighs less than a paperclip. Its wings are delicate, its body fragile, and yet it embarks on one of the most astonishing journeys in the natural world. A voyage stretching thousands of miles across forests, mountains, deserts, and entire countries. This is the monarch butterfly migration, a feat of endurance, precision, and mystery that spans not just distance, but generations. Every fall, millions of monarch butterflies in North America begin a long migration southward. Monarchs east of the Rocky Mountains travel up to 3,000 miles to reach a few specific mountain forests in central Mexico. Monarchs west of the Rockies migrate to the coast of California. These butterflies fly over vast landscapes, navigating with astonishing accuracy to places they have never been before. Because here's the most incredible part. No single monarch makes the full round trip. The butterflies that begin the migration are not the ones who return. The journey south is made by a super generation, the special brood that lives up to 8 months, far longer than the typical monarch lifespan of just a few weeks. This generation is biologically different, built for distance, longevity, and survival. After overwintering in dense clusters on fir and oyamel trees in Mexico, these monarchs begin their journey north in early spring. But they only make it part way. They lay eggs along the route, on milkweed, the only plant their caterpillars can eat, then die. Their offspring continue the journey, then their offspring. It takes 3 to 4 generations for monarchs to complete the migration back to their northern breeding grounds in the US and Canada. And yet, by the time autumn comes again, a new super generation somehow knows where to go to returning to the same tiny patch of forest in Mexico that their great-grandparents left behind. No maps, no teachers, just an inherited sense of direction encoded in biology, guided by the sun, the Earth's magnetic field, and perhaps still unknown cues. How they do this remains one of science's great puzzles. Monarchs use a sun compass, detecting the angle of sunlight in the sky. They also appear to have a molecular clock, a timing mechanism in their antennae that helps them adjust their course as the sun moves. And some evidence suggests they can sense the magnetic field of the Earth, like birds and sea turtles. But how all of these tools combine to guide such a small creature across a continent year after year without getting lost is still a mystery. The migration isn't just long, it's perilous. Monarchs face habitat loss, deforestation in their overwintering sites, extreme weather, pesticide use, and the disappearance of milkweed across North America. Their numbers have declined dramatically in recent decades, and conservationists are racing to protect the corridors they rely on, pathways that stretch across nations, unseen by most of us, but essential for their survival. And yet, despite the odds, they continue. Tiny wings against the wind. A memory carried not by individuals, but by generations. A route known not by learning, but by instinct, deep enough to cross time itself. The monarch migration isn't just a journey. It's a story passed down in the language of wings and wind, a living thread that ties together land, season, and species across vast distances. It reminds us that intelligence comes in many forms, that purpose doesn't always require planning, that nature holds maps we still don't understand, and it shows us something rare in the natural world, a miracle that happens slowly, softly, one generation at a time. All lightning. Imagine a thunderstorm tearing across the sky. Rain pours, thunder cracks, and lightning forks down from the heavens. But then, something stranger. A glowing sphere appears. It hovers silently, drifts through the air, maybe even passes through a window or vanishes with a quiet pop. It's not lightning, it's not fire, it's something else entirely. This is ball lightning, a rare and still unexplained phenomenon that has mystified scientists and eyewitnesses for centuries. Descriptions vary, but the core image remains the same: a luminous orb, often the size of a grapefruit, glowing white, blue, orange, or red. It appears during thunderstorms, usually after a lightning strike. It floats, bounces, spins, or hovers. Sometimes it explodes, sometimes it vanishes soundlessly. It can last several seconds, far longer than ordinary lightning, and it moves in ways that defy physics as we know it. Reports of ball lightning stretch back hundreds of years. Pilots have seen it in flight, soldiers have seen it in war. People have watched it drift through homes, float above rivers, or dance across fields. Some accounts even describe it passing through solid objects, glass windows, walls, without breaking them. But despite the countless sightings, no one knows exactly what it is. Ball lightning is notoriously elusive. It's rare, unpredictable, and nearly impossible to study under controlled conditions. Scientists have proposed dozens of theories, but none are conclusive. Some suggest it's a plasma phenomenon, a glowing ball of ionized gas held together by magnetic fields. Others propose it's caused by microwave radiation trapped in a bubble of air created by a lightning strike. Still others think it's a chemical reaction involving vaporized silicon or other elements in the soil. One bold theory even involves antimatter, suggesting the spheres are brief local interactions between ordinary and antimatter particles. Another proposes tiny black holes, although there's no supporting evidence. The sheer range of ideas speaks to how little we truly understand. In recent years, researchers in China may have accidentally captured a ball lightning event on high-speed video during a storm, recording both its light spectrum and its behavior. It was a rare breakthrough, but even that left more questions than answers. And so, ball lightning remains a scientific enigma. It's a phenomenon without a definitive explanation, a glowing, unpredictable glitch in the natural world. Some doubt its existence altogether, dismissing it as an optical illusion or misremembered lightning flash. But the consistency of reports from across cultures and centuries suggests otherwise. There is something there, we just don't know what, and maybe that's part of its allure. Ball lightning reminds us that the world still holds secrets, that even in the age of satellites, lasers, and particle colliders, nature still surprises us, still hides things in the storm, still humbles us with quiet, glowing questions. A sphere of light, hovering in the dark. Real, illusion, or something in between? We don't know. But somewhere, in the heart of the storm, it waits. Baryon asymmetry. Imagine the moment of the Big Bang, an explosion not just of heat and space, but of creation. Matter and antimatter burst into existence together. Mirror particles with equal mass but opposite charge. For every proton an antiproton, for every electron a positron. Perfectly balanced, opposites destined to meet. And when they do, they annihilate. vanishing in a flash of energy. According to the laws of physics, this should have happened everywhere. The early universe should have destroyed itself in an instant, leaving behind nothing but light. But it didn't. Instead, something survived. Somehow, in the first fleeting moments of time, matter gained a tiny edge over antimatter. Just one extra particle of matter for every billion matter-antimatter pairs. The rest annihilated in that primordial fireball. But the leftovers, the baryons, became everything. Stars, galaxies, planets. This imbalance is called baryon asymmetry, and it's one of the deepest mysteries in all of physics. Why is there more matter than antimatter? Why does the universe exist at all? The known laws of particle physics say matter and antimatter should have been created in equal amounts. Every reaction, every equation treats them symmetrically, and yet something tipped the scales. We don't know exactly what caused this asymmetry, but scientists have ideas. Some theories suggest that in the very early universe, certain high-energy processes violated a rule called CP symmetry, the principle that the laws of physics should apply equally to particles and antiparticles if their charges and spatial coordinates are reversed. If CP symmetry was broken even slightly, it could have allowed matter to win by a tiny margin. We've observed CP violation in laboratory experiments, especially with particles called kaons and B mesons. But the effect is far too small to explain the cosmic imbalance. So physicists believe there must be additional unknown sources of CP violation, something hidden in the early universe or in particles we haven't yet discovered. Another possibility is that baryon asymmetry came from interactions during cosmic inflation, or from the decay of exotic particles that existed only in the universe's first microseconds. These scenarios fall under a broad idea called baryogenesis, the process by which the matter-antimatter imbalance might have emerged. There's even a more radical possibility, that antimatter still exists, but it's segregated in distant parts of the universe, entire antimatter galaxies, separated from us by vast stretches of space. But we've seen no evidence of that, no unusual gamma rays, no signs of large-scale matter-antimatter collisions. The universe appears to be dominated by matter everywhere we look. And so the question remains, where did all the antimatter go? The baryon asymmetry reminds us that the universe did not have to turn out this way. It could have been sterile, empty, a void of pure radiation. But, for reasons we don't yet understand, it wasn't. Something, perhaps a twist in the laws of symmetry, perhaps an unknown particle, created just enough imbalance to leave behind a trace. And that trace became everything. Galaxies, stars, Earth, life, you. The baryon asymmetry is not just a puzzle in physics. It's the reason there's a sky to look at, a ground to stand on, a mind to ask the question. It's a cosmic imbalance that made consciousness possible. And it whispers a truth we still don't understand, that from perfect symmetry, imperfection emerged. And from that imperfection, the universe, dark lightning. Imagine a thunderstorm crackling across the sky, rain pouring, clouds rumbling, brilliant bolts of lightning slashing through the air. You see the flash, hear the boom, but in that same instant, something else happens, something you don't see. Something silent, invisible, and far stranger. A burst of antimatter. This is dark lightning, a dark energy form that occurs during thunderstorms. Unlike ordinary lightning, it doesn't light up the sky. It doesn't strike trees or flash across the horizon. Instead, it unleashes a beam of gamma rays, the most energetic form of light, and sometimes even creates positrons, the antimatter counterparts of electrons. And we didn't even know it existed until recently. Dark lightning was discovered by accident. Satellites orbiting Earth, designed to detect gamma rays from deep space, began picking up intense bursts coming not from distant galaxies, but from inside our own atmosphere during storms. These bursts were called terrestrial gamma-ray flashes, and they last only milliseconds, but in that instant they release as much energy as a major solar flare. It turns out that when strong electric fields build up inside a thundercloud, electrons can be accelerated to near the speed of light. These high-speed electrons collide with atoms, emitting powerful gamma rays. In some cases, the energy is so intense that the gamma rays transform into matter and antimatter pairs, dot electrons and positrons, right in the middle of the storm. This invisible event happens miles above the ground, sometimes even above the clouds, and yet it can send antimatter streaming into space. For a brief moment, a thunderstorm becomes a particle accelerator, powerful in some ways than anything we've built on Earth, and we never see it. That's why it's called dark lightning. A flash without light, a bolt made of radiation, not visible energy. It may happen just before or alongside a visible lightning strike, or it may happen completely on its own, hidden in the chaos of the storm. We don't yet know how often dark lightning occurs. Estimates suggest thousands of TGFs may happen every day around the world, but because they're invisible, we can only detect them with sensitive equipment, often from orbit, and we still don't fully understand their risks. Are airline passengers ever exposed to bursts of radiation from these events? Could dark lightning affect high-flying aircraft or astronauts? What's certain is that dark lightning has added a new dimension to our understanding of storms. We used to think of thunderstorms as purely atmospheric phenomena, water, heat, electricity, but now we know they also tap into the high-energy physics of particles and fields, reaching up into the ionosphere and beyond. They are not just weather, they are brief windows into the extreme forces that shape the universe. Dark lightning reminds us that the sky is more than clouds and rain. It hides secret fires, invisible flashes, antimatter born in silence, riding the pulse of a storm. And it shows us that even the most familiar forces, lightning, thunder, air, can still carry mysteries we're only just beginning to see. Wow, signal. Imagine sitting in a dark room, listening to the static of the cosmos. White noise, endless and uneventful. Then, suddenly, blip. A burst. A signal. One that doesn't sound like a star, a pulsar, or any known source. It lasts just 72 seconds, but it's clear, powerful, and unmistakably different. This is the wow signal, one of the most compelling and mysterious moments in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. On August 15, 1977, a radio telescope at Ohio State University, known as the Big Ear, was scanning the sky as part of a long-running SETI Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence program. It was listening at a frequency near 1420 Miss, the natural emission frequency of neutral hydrogen, chosen because it's quiet, universal, and likely to be recognized by any technologically advanced civilization. That's when it happened. A sudden, strong signal flooded in from a seemingly empty part of the sky lasting just over a minute, the exact length of time the telescope could observe a fixed point as the Earth rotated. It was non-repeating, narrowband, and far more intense than background noise. So unusual, in fact, that astronomer Jerry R. Eman, who discovered it days later in the data printout, circled the sequence of numbers and letters representing the signal and scribbled a single word in red ink. Wow, yet. And so the wow signal got its name. But what was it? No one knows. The signal appeared to come from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, near a group of stars with no known planets. It wasn't repeated. It wasn't local interference. It matched no known satellite, no pulsar, no natural phenomenon we could explain. It had the hallmarks of an artificial origin. A narrow bandwidth signal from deep space, right on a frequency that scientists believe extraterrestrials might choose. But without a repeat, it remained a question mark. Over the decades, scientists have scanned the same patch of sky again and again, dozens of telescopes, thousands of hours, but the signal has never returned. A few theories have been proposed, though maybe it was a reflection from a distant satellite or a passing comet's hydrogen cloud, or some unknown atmospheric glitch, but none have been confirmed. None fully match the characteristics of what was detected. The WOW signal remains a cosmic one-off, a lone note in a silent sky, a whisper that said, "I'm here," and then disappeared. And that's what makes it so haunting. Because it could be nothing, a fluke, a cosmic coincidence, but it could also be everything. The one time we caught a signal from another intelligence and we missed our chance to answer. No coordinates, no reply, just a single burst, like a match struck in the dark and gone. The WOW signal reminds us that the universe is vast, that signals may come and go, that we might not know when we've heard something extraordinary until it's already faded into history. But it also reminds us to keep listening, because somewhere out there, beyond the stars, another signal might be waiting, another WOW, another chance to know we are not alone. All we need is to catch it. And this time, be ready, Tabby's star. Imagine staring at a distant star. It glows steadily, like a cosmic lighthouse in the dark. Then, without warning, it dims. Not a little, but by as much as 20%. Then it brightens again, then dims again. Not on a schedule, not in a pattern, just unpredictably. This is Tabby's star, officially known as KIC 8,462,852.1, of the strangest and most debated mysteries in modern astronomy. Discovered in 2015 by citizen scientists analyzing data from NASA's Kepler Space Telescope, Tabby's star caught attention because of its bizarre and erratic light fluctuations. Most stars that dim do so in regular intervals caused by planets orbiting in front of them, blocking a small, predictable portion of their light. But Tabby's star didn't behave like that. Its dimming was deep, irregular, and prolonged, sometimes lasting days or even weeks. Some dips reduced the star's brightness by as much as 22%, far too extreme for any known planet. And the dimming didn't happen in a neat rhythm, but in strange, inconsistent waves. The star quickly became a cosmic enigma. What could cause a star to flicker like this? Astronomers proposed a flurry of explanations. Could it be a swarm of comets, trailing dust and ice, passing in front of the star in loose, overlapping orbits? Or perhaps clouds of interstellar dust drifting between us and the star, temporarily blocking the light? Maybe debris from a shattered planet, slowly dispersing around the star? Each theory explained part of the behavior, but none explained it completely. And then came the most provocative idea. Could it be a megastructure Dyson swarm built by an advanced alien civilization, harvesting energy from the star? The concept, once reserved for science fiction, suddenly leapt into public conversation. The dimming was, after all, unlike anything natural we had seen. If a civilization had built massive structures around their sun, solar collectors, panels, or even artificial habitats, they might cause strange, irregular dimming, just like what we were observing. The media ran with the story. Tabby's star was dubbed the alien megastructure star, but scientists, cautious and skeptical, continued their work. Follow-up observations were made. Radio telescopes listened for signals, Infrared surveys searched for excess heat that a Dyson structure might emit. No alien signals were found. And yet, the mystery persisted. Over time, more data revealed that the dimming was wavelength dependent, meaning it affected certain colors of light more than others. That's a strong clue that dust is involved, since dust tends to block blue light more than red. But still, the amount and irregularity of the dimming remains strange. Even years later, no single model explains everything we see. The leading theory now involves fine dust grains, possibly from a disrupted exomoon or an uneven ring of material orbiting the star. But even that doesn't answer every question. Tabby's star, named after astronomer Tabitha Boyajian, who led the team that brought it to light, is still under watch. Telescopes around the world continue to monitor its flickers. Its behavior is still being recorded, still being decoded, and still no one knows for sure what's causing it. Tabby's star reminds us that the universe isn't just vast, it's weird, that we don't fully understand even the light from a single distant sun, that nature still holds surprises. Some as strange as science fiction. It's a cosmic riddle, too natural to be aliens, too strange to be ordinary. And so we keep watching, waiting for the next dimming, the next flicker, the next clue. Missing lithium problem. Imagine rewinding time to the first few minutes after the Big Bang. The universe, just seconds old, is a blistering ocean of particles, radiation, and pure energy. Temperatures are extreme. Matter is just beginning to take shape. And in this brief but critical window, known as Big Bang nucleosynthesis, the first elements are forged. Hydrogen, the simplest and most abundant, forms first. Then helium with a bit more complexity, and finally trace amounts of lithium, specifically lithium-7, emerge in the cooling soup of particles. According to well-established physics, scientists can predict how much of each element should have formed during this process. And for hydrogen and helium, the predictions and observations match beautifully. But lithium? That's where things go wrong. When we look at ancient stars, old metal-poor stars from the early universe, the amount of lithium they contain is far less than predicted. In fact, observations show 3 to 4 times less lithium-7 than Big Bang models say should be there. This isn't a rounding error, it's a significant mismatch. One that's been confirmed across different stars, different galaxies, and different observational techniques. This persistent discrepancy is known as the missing lithium problem, and it remains one of the most confounding open questions in cosmology. So what's the explanation? One possibility is that the models of Big Bang nucleosynthesis, so reliable in other ways, are somehow incomplete. Maybe there's a missing piece in our understanding of particle interactions in the early universe. Perhaps an unknown particle, such as a decaying dark matter component or a new kind of neutrino, interfered with lithium formation. These theories are tantalizing, but so far, none have been confirmed by observation or experiment. Another idea is that the lithium was indeed produced as predicted, but was later destroyed. Lithium is a fragile element. It burns easily in stellar interiors, especially in the hot, dense environments found within stars. If early stars cycled lithium through their interiors and destroyed it, that could explain the deficit. But some of the ancient stars showing the lithium shortage are relatively unevolved. They shouldn't have had time or internal conditions strong enough to destroy that much lithium. Could it be observational error? That's always a possibility. Measuring lithium in distant stars involves complex models of stellar atmospheres and spectral analysis. But the missing lithium shows up consistently across multiple systems, and the measurements have only improved with time. There's also the odd fact that lithium levels seem to plateau in certain populations of stars, a feature called the Spite Plateau. It suggests that lithium destruction, or loss, isn't a smooth or random process, but something systematic. Yet we still don't know what mechanism would explain both the plateau and the missing amount. Some theorists have even considered more exotic explanations. Perhaps cosmic inflation left behind an uneven distribution of elements. Or perhaps there's a subtle, unknown law of physics that only reveals itself under the extreme conditions of the early universe. Each possibility opens new doors and raises new questions. What makes the missing lithium problem so compelling is that it sits right at the intersection of cosmology, nuclear physics, and astronomy. It suggests that somewhere, either in our equations or in the universe itself, there's something we haven't yet understood. And whatever the answer is, it might not just solve the lithium puzzle. It could rewrite part of our understanding of how the universe evolved. It's a quiet mystery, not as dramatic as black holes or dark energy, but just as important. Because sometimes it's the small things, the lightest elements, the tiniest mismatches that reveal the biggest truths. And lithium, fragile and scarce, may hold the key to a deeper cosmic story still waiting to unfold. CMB axis of evil. Imagine the universe as it was nearly 14 billion years ago, searingly hot, dense and glowing. As it expanded and cooled, that glow dimmed and stretched, turning into microwaves that now fill the cosmos. This ancient radiation is the cosmic microwave background, or CMB, a silent light, still echoing from the moment the universe became transparent. When we map the CMB, what we see is astonishing, a nearly perfect uniformity. Tiny temperature fluctuations on the order of 1 part in 100,000 the sky. These minute differences represent the seeds of everything. Galaxies, clusters, filaments, voids. In them lies the blueprint of the universe's large-scale structure. According to the standard model of cosmology, these fluctuations should be random and isotropic, the same in every direction, with no special orientation or structure. The early universe, we're told, was born without preference, without alignment. That randomness is fundamental to the Big Bang model and the period of cosmic inflation that followed. But when scientists analyzed the full sky CMB data from the Woodamap satellite and later, with even greater precision, from the Planck satellite they noticed something deeply unsettling: an alignment. Specifically, the quadrupole and octupole modes, large-scale patterns in the CMB's temperature distribution, weren't randomly scattered across the sky. Instead, they were oriented. Not in every direction, but preferentially aligned along a single axis in space. This axis seemed to cut across the sky in a direction that also aligned curiously with the plane of the Milky Way. Coincidence? Foreground contamination? Or something deeper? The phenomenon was dubbed the axis of evil, a name both ironic and ominous, reflecting how much it threatened to disrupt the accepted cosmological framework. Because if the CMB has a preferred direction, then the universe is not perfectly isotropic, and that would challenge one of the most deeply held assumptions in cosmology, the cosmological principle, which says that the universe is homogeneous and isotropic on large scales. The implications are profound. If real, the axis of evil suggests that the universe may have some intrinsic directionality, a cosmic tilt that contradicts the idea of a directionless, statistically uniform universe. It would also challenge inflationary models, which rely on the idea that the universe was stretched into uniformity shortly after the Big Bang. An axis would mean something survived that stretch, something primordial, something hidden in the structure of space itself. Scientists have explored every mundane explanation. Could it be dust from our galaxy? Could it be local interference, observational error, or artifacts in the data processing? Foreground subtraction techniques have grown more sophisticated, yet the alignment persists, not as definitive proof of a new physics, but as a quiet, stubborn anomaly that won't vanish. Some have proposed exotic physics to explain it, perhaps a non-trivial topology of the universe, like a torus or a dodecahedron, could imprint a directional pattern. Or maybe the inflationary process itself had imperfections, quantum fluctuations that weren't quite uniform, leaving behind a cosmic scar. There's even a more provocative idea that our position in the universe is not entirely typical, that perhaps we exist in a special part of the cosmos, near or on a large-scale axis that subtly governs the orientation of space-time. It would be a return to a kind of cosmic geocentrism, but not because Earth is special, because the location is. And yet, this line of thinking is deeply uncomfortable. It pushes against centuries of progress, from Copernicus to Hubble, reminding us that science depends on humility. For now, the axis of evil is not proof of a broken universe. It is not proof of intelligent design or cosmic intent or a fatal flaw in the Big Bang. It is simply a whisper from the deep, a pattern where there should be none. Maybe it's an illusion. Maybe it's a clue. But either way, it reminds us that the oldest light in the universe still holds secrets, that in the background radiation of creation there are ripples we don't yet understand. And sometimes the universe doesn't shout its revelations. It simply points, quietly, persistently, towards something more. Flyby anomaly. Imagine a spacecraft hurtling through space, guided by the precise mathematics of gravity. It approaches Earth to perform a gravity assist.A maneuver, where the planet's motion gives the spacecraft an extra slingshot of speed, sending it on its way more efficiently. Every variable is calculated, every trajectory modeled down to the finest decimal. The physics is elegant, consistent, trusted. And yet, something's off. When the spacecraft completes its flyby, it's moving slightly faster or slower than expected. Not much, just a few millimeters per second. But, in the world of orbital mechanics, that's huge, unplanned, unexplained. This is the flyby anomaly.A, a small but persistent mystery that has confounded scientists since it was first observed. It began in the 1990s, when NASA's Galileo spacecraft performed a flyby of Earth. After the maneuver, researchers noticed a tiny discrepancy between the expected velocity and the actual one. At first, it seemed like a fluke, but then it happened again. With the Near spacecraft in 1998, then with Rosetta, Cassini, and Messenger, not every flyby showed the anomaly, but when it did, the velocity shifts weren't random. They seemed to follow a pattern, but not one we fully understand. The anomaly is usually positive. The spacecraft gains a little extra speed, but the magnitude and direction of the effect vary. In some cases, no anomaly appears at all. It's as if something invisible is nudging the spacecraft. Not enough to disrupt the mission, but enough to raise questions. So what could be causing it? Scientists have explored the usual suspects: atmospheric drag, solar radiation pressure, thermal radiation, magnetic fields, errors in the tracking software. All were considered. None could fully account for the effect, especially since it occurs above Earth's atmosphere, where drag is virtually non-existent and the spacecraft is in near-perfect freefall. One intriguing clue lies in the geometry of the flybys. Some researchers noted that the anomaly seems to correlate with the inclination of the spacecraft's approach and departure trajectory relative to Earth's equator. It's almost as if the effect is tied to Earth's rotation, hinting at something subtle in the interaction between the spacecraft's motion and the planet's spinning frame. Could it be a relativistic effect? A twist in space-time we haven't accounted for? Some have speculated about modifications to Newtonian dynamics or extensions of general relativity. Others propose more speculative ideas, interactions with dark matter, unmodeled gravitational harmonics, or even unknown forces at play in low Earth orbit. But so far there is no definitive answer. It's possible that the anomaly is the result of tiny, cumulative modeling errors that we haven't yet detected, corrections in coordinate systems, overlooked asymmetries in Earth's gravitational field, or subtle timing mismatches in Doppler tracking. Or it may be something more. The flyby anomaly is a reminder that even with all our mastery of physics and orbital mechanics, there are still gaps, still corners of nature that don't quite fit into our equations. We send spacecraft to the edge of the solar system, and they whisper back not just data, but puzzles. Puzzles like this one, quiet, precise, small enough to ignore, but persistent enough to notice. And sometimes those small anomalies are the cracks where new science begins, where new forces are uncovered, where deeper truths emerge. The spacecraft move on, but the questions remain. 3. Body problem, chaos. Imagine watching 3 stars locked in a cosmic dance. Each pulls on the others with its own gravity, tugging, twisting, spiraling through space. At first their motion seems graceful, like a perfect ballet, but then it starts to unravel. One speeds up, another slingshots away, the third veers wildly, the harmony breaks into chaos. This is the 3-body problem, one of the oldest and most famous unsolved problems in physics. It asks a simple question. Given 3 objects in space, each pulling on the others with gravity, can we predict their exact future paths? For 2 bodies, like Earth and the Moon or the Sun and a planet, we can. The math is elegant, the motion stable, their orbits trace out neat ellipses, repeating forever. But add a 3rd body, and everything changes. Suddenly the system becomes chaotic. The paths loop, twist, and tangle in unpredictable ways. A tiny change in starting conditions can lead to vastly different outcomes. A decent chaos theory is the main theory. There's no general solution, no single equation that can predict the motion of all 3 bodies for all time. That doesn't mean we can't approximate their behavior. Physicists and mathematicians have developed numerical methods to simulate specific 3-body scenarios with remarkable precision. But even the best simulations eventually become uncertain. The longer the time scale, the more unpredictable the system becomes. This isn't just a mathematical curiosity. The 3-body problem appears everywhere in astronomy. Moons orbiting planets while influenced by the Sun, stars in triple systems, spacecraft moving through the gravitational pull of multiple celestial bodies. Understanding these interactions is essential for space travel, for predicting planetary motion, and for probing the structure of galaxies. Over centuries, the problem attracted the greatest minds in science, Newton, Euler, Lagrange, and Poincaré. It was Poincaré who first proved in the late 19th century that no general solution exists for the 3-body case. In doing so, he also laid the groundwork for the modern understanding of dynamical chaos, the idea that deterministic systems can behave in ways that seem random. Some special solutions do exist, configurations where the bodies form repeating, symmetrical paths. One famous example is the Lagrange points, where a smaller object can orbit in sync with 2 larger ones. Another is the figure 8 orbit, a rare and beautiful case where 3 equal masses trace a looping path in perfect harmony. But these are rare exceptions, not the rule. For most initial conditions, the outcome of a 3-body system is fundamentally unpredictable. It may look stable for a while, then one body is suddenly flung away, never to return. Others spiral inward or fall into wildly looping orbits. No matter how precisely you start, chaos creeps in. This problem inspired not only physicists but also philosophers, science fiction writers, and even artists. It symbolizes the limits of knowledge, the fragility of prediction, and the deep, hidden complexity of natural systems. It shows us that determinism doesn't always mean predictability. The three-body problem is a crack in the clockwork of Newton's universe. A reminder that even in a world governed by laws, some questions resist answers. That motion itself can contain mystery. That the universe, at its core, is not always smooth, but wild, unpredictable, beautifully broken. Quantum Zeno effect. Imagine standing in front of a flickering candle. Every time it begins to dim, you look at it, and it burns steady again. It never gets a chance to go out. Your constant attention holds it in place, as if observation itself were a kind of control. Now imagine that candle is a quantum system. And your gaze? Measurement. This is the quantum Zeno effect, a bizarre and counterintuitive phenomenon where frequent observation can prevent a quantum system from evolving. In other words, watching something too closely can freeze it in place. In the quantum world, particles exist in uncertain states. An electron might be here or there. An atom might be in one energy level or another. Only when you measure it does it choose, collapsing into a definite state. But between measurements, the system evolves. It shifts, it drifts, it changes. Unless you keep watching. If you measure a quantum system rapidly and repeatedly, over and over again, you prevent it from transitioning into new states. The constant interruption resets the system's quantum evolution, forcing it to stay where it started, like a child caught trying to sneak out of their chair, freezing every time a parent looks over. The effect was first proposed in the 1970s by physicists Baidyanath Misra and George Sudarshan, who showed mathematically that continuous observation would effectively halt decay in unstable quantum systems. At first, it sounded like a paradox or even a thought experiment. But in 1990, it was demonstrated experimentally with trapped atoms. It's real and it's weird. This isn't about human consciousness collapsing reality. Observation here simply means interaction with a measuring device, a photon, a probe, any disturbance that extracts information from the system. Measurement interrupts the delicate dance of probabilities, forcing the system to decide prematurely. Again, and so it stays the same. The name comes from Zeno's paradoxes. Ancient Greek arguments about motion and change. Just as Zeno claimed an arrow in flight is motionless at every instant, the quantum Zeno effect suggests that, under constant scrutiny, change itself can be paused. This has profound implications for quantum physics, especially in fields like quantum computing and quantum control, where maintaining specific quantum states for extended periods is critical. In a world where quantum bits can flip or decay unpredictably, the ability to stabilize them through rapid measurement is not just useful, it may be essential, but it also carries philosophical weight. The quantum Zeno effect hints at a universe where the act of observation shapes the future, not by will or intention, but by presence, by attention. That simply watching, simply interacting, can alter what is possible. In classical physics, observation is passive. You can watch a rock without changing it. But in quantum physics, observation is influence, it's participation. The universe doesn't just unfold while you watch, it responds. And in this case, it holds still. The quantum Zeno effect is a strange reminder that at the smallest scales, time, change, and choice are not as separate as we think. That watching closely doesn't just reveal truth, it can prevent it from happening at all. In a world where everything moves, the very act of looking, Olbers' paradox. Imagine standing beneath a clear, moonless night. You gaze upward into the quiet darkness, speckled with stars, galaxies, and the faint glow of the Milky Way. It feels vast, dark, empty, yet infinite. But then a strange question arises. Why is it dark at all? If the universe is infinite and filled uniformly with stars, shouldn't the night sky be blindingly bright? Shouldn't every direction you look be filled with starlight? There are, after all, trillions upon trillions of stars. Shouldn't their combined light flood the sky, leaving no room for shadow? This simple question is known as Olbers' paradox, named after the German astronomer Heinrich Wilhelm Olbers, who discussed it in 1823. But the puzzle predates him, with earlier thinkers like Kepler and Halley pondering similar ideas. It's a paradox born from logic. In a static, eternal, and infinite universe, evenly filled with stars, the entire sky should glow as brightly as the surface of a star. And yet, it doesn't. The night sky remains mostly black, interrupted only by tiny pinpricks of light. So where is all the missing starlight? To answer that, we must examine the assumptions behind the paradox, each of which turns out to be flawed in light of modern cosmology. First, the universe is not eternal. It had a beginning. The Big Bang, roughly 13.8 billion years ago. That means we can only see as far as light has had time to travel. There's a limit to our view, the observable universe. Beyond that, starlight simply hasn't had enough time to reach us. Second, the universe is not static, it's expanding. As space itself stretches, the light traveling through it is red-shifted, meaning its wavelength increases and its energy decreases. What began as visible light from ancient stars gets stretched into infrared and microwave radiation, invisible to the naked eye. This cosmic red shift dims the sky, even if stars are out there. Third, stars are not eternal either. They are born, live, and die. The night sky isn't an even wall of eternal starlight because stars have finite lifespans and are scattered across vast, mostly empty voids. Much of the light they once emitted is long gone, or yet to arrive. And then, there's one more twist. While the night sky appears dark to us, it's actually not entirely black. If you could see in microwaves, you'd observe a faint, uniform glow, the cosmic microwave background, CMB, the leftover radiation from the Big Bang. This is the light from the universe's earliest moment of transparency, stretched and cooled over billions of years. So in a sense, the sky is lit but not in visible wavelengths. Together, these insights resolve the paradox. The night sky is dark because the universe has a finite age. The speed of light limits what we can see. Cosmic expansion stretches and dims ancient light. Stars are not uniformly distributed or everlasting. What seems like a simple observational oddity turns out to be a profound window into the nature of space, time, and existence. Olbers' paradox teaches us that sometimes darkness itself is the evidence. The blackness of the night isn't a gap in understanding itself. It's a consequence of it. It confirms a beginning. It confirms expansion. It confirms that we live in a universe that's still unfolding. It also reminds us that big questions can come from ordinary experiences. You don't need a telescope or a physics degree to ask why the sky is dark. All you need is to look up and wonder. And in that darkness you'll find the faint glow of cosmic truth. Hierarchy problem. Imagine trying to lift a paperclip with a tiny magnet. It snaps upward effortlessly, defying the gravitational pull of the entire Earth. One small magnet overpowers the mass of an entire planet. That moment reveals something astonishing. gravity is incredibly weak compared to the other fundamental forces of nature. This is the hierarchy problem, the deep mystery of why gravity is so vastly weaker than the electromagnetic, weak, and strong nuclear forces. In the standard model of particle physics, 3 of the 4 fundamental forces, electromagnetism, the weak force, and the strong force, fit together fairly neatly. They operate at subatomic scales, governed by quantum fields and particle exchanges. Gravity, however, doesn't quite fit. It's described by general relativity, not quantum mechanics, and behaves radically differently. But more than that, gravity is astonishingly weak. Consider this. The electromagnetic force between 2 electrons is about 10^33 times stronger than their gravitational attraction. That's a trillion times. This isn't just a matter of scale. It's a chasm, an imbalance, a hierarchy that seems unnatural. Why should one force be so feeble when the others are so strong? The hierarchy problem becomes especially pressing when we examine the Higgs boson, the particle that gives mass to other particles. The Higgs field is incredibly sensitive to quantum fluctuations, especially those involving gravity at very high energies like the Planck scale. Yet the observed mass of the Higgs is much lower, La, around 125 GeV. According to quantum theory, the Higgs mass should be pushed upward toward the Planck scale by these but it isn't. Something holds it in place. So the question becomes, why is the Higgs mass so much lower than expected? Why is gravity so weak? And why isn't the Higgs being overwhelmed by it? Several theories have been proposed to explain this mystery. Supersymmetry, a theoretical framework where each known particle has a heavier superpartner. These partners could cancel out the dangerous quantum corrections to the Higgs mass, stabilizing it. So far, no superpartners have been detected. Extra dimensions. Some models suggest that gravity appears weak because it leaks into higher dimensions beyond the 3 we experience. In this view, gravity might actually be strong, but its effects are diluted across a larger hidden space. Technicolor, composite Higgs and other mechanisms. These propose that the Higgs is not a fundamental particle, but composed of more basic elements, or that new forces help regulate its mass. Despite decades of exploration, no solution has been confirmed. The Large Hadron Collider, while it did discover the Higgs boson, has yet to find signs of supersymmetry or extra dimensions, and so the hierarchy problem remains unsolved. It reminds us that the universe's forces, though elegant in equation, may be hiding deeper structure beneath. It suggests that the standard model, as successful as it is, might be just an approximation, a surface layer waiting to be peeled back. Gravity, the force that shapes stars, bends spacetime, and holds galaxies together, seems almost like an afterthought in particle physics. But perhaps its quiet weakness is the loudest clue, a sign that we're missing something fundamental, that the true architecture of the universe is more intricate, and more astonishing, than we've yet imagined. The hierarchy problem is not just about forces. It's about the fragility of balance, the mystery of scale, and the possibility that behind the visible universe, a hidden symmetry still waits to be uncovered. Boltzmann brain. Imagine a vast, empty universe, cold, dark, and nearly dead. No stars, no galaxies, no structure, just the quiet hum of entropy at its peak. But in this stillness, something improbable happens. Particles randomly collide, fluctuate, rearrange, and out of pure chance, for the briefest moment, they form a single coherent structure, a conscious mind, complete with memories, thoughts, and the illusion of a past. A brain in the void, thinking, I am. This is the Boltzmann brain. A philosophical and scientific paradox that arises from the strange intersection of thermodynamics, probability, and cosmology. Named after Austrian physicist Ludwig Boltzmann, who sought to explain how order could emerge in an entropic universe, the idea begins with a simple principle. Given enough time, even the most unlikely events will happen. In a universe dominated by disorder, small patches of order can appear due to random fluctuation. So rather than waiting for an entire low-entropy universe like ours to spontaneously form, which is hugely improbable, it would be far more likely, astronomically more likely, for something smaller to emerge, like a single brain, one that simply appears out of the quantum chaos, complete, self-aware, and embedded with false memories. Statistically speaking, a Boltzmann brain is far easier to form than an entire universe full of galaxies, stars, and biological evolution. And if that's the case, how do we know we're not one? That's the paradox. If the universe lasts forever and allows for infinite fluctuations, then Boltzmann brains should vastly outnumber real observers like us. Most conscious experiences would come not from evolved beings in orderly worlds, but from random one-off blips in an ocean of entropy. So why do we see a coherent, structured universe? Why does our experience come with a consistent past, a functioning physical law, and a shared cosmos, when a Boltzmann brain would hallucinate all of that from nothing? One possible answer is that we don't live in a universe that allows Boltzmann brains to dominate. Perhaps the universe has a finite lifespan, or a specific entropy behavior that prevents infinite fluctuations. Perhaps the laws of physics impose constraints we don't yet understand. Or perhaps our cosmological models are wrong in ways we haven't discovered. Some physicists consider the Boltzmann brain problem a reductio ad absurdum, a sign that any theory predicting them in abundance is flawed and must be discarded. Others take it seriously as a tool for testing the philosophical coherence of cosmology, because the Boltzmann brain forces us to confront a terrifying question. If consciousness can arise by accident, how do we know we are real? Not just real, but rooted in cause and continuity. Not just thinking, but existing in a universe that supports the thought. The idea is disturbing, but also illuminating. It shows how physics and probability can lead to questions once reserved for philosophy. It blurs the boundary between science and self-awareness. And it reminds us that the greatest mysteries aren't just out there in the cosmos. They're inside our own minds. Thinking, questioning, wondering if the world we see is a memory or a moment, a miracle of order or a fluctuation in the void. Black drop effect. Imagine standing at a telescope in the 18th century, surrounded by eager astronomers and ticking clocks. A rare event is unfolding. Venus, the planet named for a goddess, is slowly gliding across the face of the sun. It's called a transit, and it's not just beautiful. It's critical. By timing the precise moment Venus begins and ends its journey across the sun's disk, scientists hope to use geometry and observation to measure something enormous: the distance from Earth to the sun, the cornerstone of cosmic measurement, known as the astronomical unit. But then something strange happens. As Venus approaches the edge of the solar disk, either just before it enters or just before it leaves, its silhouette seems to stick to the sun's edge. Instead of separating cleanly, it stretches, forming a dark bridge or teardrop shape that connects the planet's shadow to the sun's limb. For a few seconds, it's impossible to say whether Venus is fully inside or outside the solar circle. That crucial moment, the one that must be timed precisely, becomes blurry. This strange optical phenomenon is called the black drop effect, and for centuries it frustrated astronomers all over the world. The effect was first widely reported during the transits of Venus in 1761 and 1769, when expeditions were sent across the globe to record the event from different vantage points. The goal was to use parallax, the apparent shift in Venus's position from different locations on Earth, to calculate distances within the solar system. But the black drop effect made the exact timing of the contact points impossible to determine with confidence. Observers reported wildly different results, and the dream of precise measurement remained elusive. For a long time, the cause of the effect was debated. Some believed it was due to Venus's atmosphere, a thick, cloudy envelope distorting the image as it passed in front of the Sun. Others blamed Earth's atmosphere, known to shimmer and distort astronomical observations with its turbulence. But neither explanation fully accounted for the strange, sticky silhouette. It wasn't until the transits of 2004 and 2012 observed with space-based telescopes, adaptive optics, and modern imaging that the mystery was finally solved. The black drop effect is not caused by a single factor, but by the combination of several optical and physical elements. Atmospheric seeing, turbulence in Earth's atmosphere can cause blurring, making the edges of celestial objects look soft or stretched. Telescope diffraction, light passing through a telescope, doesn't produce a perfect image. It bends and spreads, causing interference that can distort fine details, especially when viewing small, high-contrast objects like Venus against the Sun. Solar limb darkening. The Sun is not evenly bright. Its edges, dot or limbs, are cooler and dimmer than its center. This gradient makes Venus's silhouette harder to define sharply at the boundary, contributing to the illusion of a black teardrop. Together, these effects create a perceptual illusion, a flaw not in the cosmos but in our observation of it. When modern instruments removed these distortions, the black drop effect vanished. Venus's shadow separated crisply from the solar limb, and the once persistent mystery dissolved in clarity. But the story doesn't end there. The black drop effect is more than just a historical curiosity. It's a powerful example of how even the most brilliant scientific minds can be misled by the tools they trust. It shows that perception is not infallible, and that the journey to truth often passes through illusion. It reminds us that in science, as in life, seeing is not always understanding, and that sometimes the edge between clarity and confusion isn't in the sky, it's in the eye. Uncertainty principle. Imagine trying to watch a single particle, so small it defies imagination, drifting somewhere in the void. You aim to measure its position and find out exactly where it is, but as you do, something strange happens. The clearer you see its location, the less you understand its motion. The sharper its momentum becomes, the more its position begins to blur. It's not just difficult, it's fundamentally impossible to know both at once with perfect precision. This is the heart of the uncertainty principle, introduced by German physicist Werner Heisenberg in 1927, one of the pillars of quantum mechanics. It reveals something astonishing, that at the quantum level, the universe itself sets limits on what can be known, not because of our tools or our perspective, but because of how nature actually works. In its most famous form, the uncertainty principle applies to position and momentum. Two of the most basic properties in physics. Momentum is the product of mass and velocity, describing how much motion an object has. Position is simply where the object is in space. In classical physics, you could measure both perfectly and predict the future of the system with complete certainty. But in the quantum realm, certainty unravels. The uncertainty principle is usually expressed with the inequality. Delta x times delta p is greater than or equal to h bar over 2. Here, delta x is the uncertainty in position, delta p is the uncertainty in momentum, and h is a constant derived from Planck's constant. What an unchanging value in nature. What this tells us is simple but profound. The more you reduce the uncertainty in one property, like position, the more the uncertainty in the other must increase. It's not a technological limitation. This is a built-in rule of the universe. And it doesn't stop with position and momentum. The same principle applies to other pairs of quantum properties, like energy and time. The more precisely you know the energy of a system, the less precisely you can know when that energy existed. This is why quantum fields can briefly borrow energy to create virtual particles which pop in and out of existence so long as they do it fast enough to satisfy the uncertainty bound. But where does this fuzziness come from? At the quantum level, particles aren't little billiard balls moving through space. They are wave functions, mathematical expressions describing probabilities. Until a measurement is made, a particle doesn't have a precise position or momentum. It exists as a cloud of potential, a superposition of all possible outcomes. When you measure one property, you collapse the wave function, forcing it into a definite state, but at the cost of certainty in the other. This idea shattered centuries of classical thinking. In Newton's universe, everything was deterministic. If you knew all the forces and initial conditions, you could predict the future perfectly. But Heisenberg showed that determinism breaks down in the quantum world. At the smallest scales, reality isn't predictable, it's probabilistic. This unsettled even Einstein, who famously remarked, "God does not play dice with the universe." But the dice, it turns out, are very real, and the uncertainty principle is not a quirk, it's a core feature of how the quantum world operates. The principle also has powerful real-world applications. In quantum computing, it defines how quantum bits behave and why they can exist in multiple states simultaneously. In quantum cryptography, it provides a safeguard signal, since any attempt to measure a quantum signal necessarily disturbs it, revealing the presence of an eavesdropper. But more than technology, the uncertainty principle carries philosophical weight. It tells us that reality is not fully knowable, that knowledge has limits not because we haven't tried hard enough, but because the fabric of the universe is woven from uncertainty itself. It invites us to see the world differently, not as a clockwork of fixed, measurable parts, but as a sea of possibilities, where measurement and reality are intertwined. In the end, Heisenberg's principle isn't just about particles. It's about the human desire to know, and the universe's quiet, quantum reminder. Some things can't be pinned down. Some answers dissolve as you reach for them. And even in a world built on laws, mystery endures.